Into the Breach is excited to be teamed up with Nine Line Apparel. They are the best. They are a veteran-owned apparel company that embodies the American spirit. Go check out ninelineapparel.com for freedom-loving, patriotic gear perfect for your family members, first responders, veterans, and active duty service members. When you're done selecting the amazing merchandise and apparel Nine Line has to offer, punch in the code ITB20. That's India Tango Bravo 20 for a 20% discount off your next purchase at ninelineapparel.com. Vet TV is a streaming service created by veterans for veterans, with over 30 different series to choose from, including our new series Battle Lab that features special operations soldiers going head-to-head with the newest tactics and threats on the modern battlefield. Into the Breach listeners have an exclusive discount of paying $1 a month for the first 2 months of subscription with the code BREACH. So head on over to Vet TV, type in BREACH at checkout to receive this incredible offer for your Vet TV subscription. Thank you for listening, and now back to the show. And we are rolling. All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have an amazing guest on, Michael Edwards Jr., retired Master Sergeant with the Ranger Regiment, or in Rangers. He was JSOC with RRC, Ranger Recon Company, which we're definitely going to dive into, and fellow Silver Star recipient.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Very excited. We were talking last night, and we, kind of recap a little bit last night. Is like I have never heard about Ranger Recon being a Tier 1 unit. And I had known about TFO, known about SEAL, their Team 6, Delta, and then about 2 months ago, I hear about this, oh yeah, there's one company Rangers that's Tier 1. And then I had Joe England on, who was TFO, and he's like, oh, I worked with those guys. They were like really good. And then Mike Burke, I hit him up, who's on the show, and I was like, hey, you got a list of Rangers? And he's like, yeah. And so he sent me a list, like, hey, these good dudes to have on. And I look you up, and it was like right away. It was almost like boom, 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 fate. Like, all right, we gotta do this, Nice. And I saw you on the Team House, listening to your podcast with Jack Murphy and all that stuff. So I'm very excited to have you on. And then I found out later, I was like, Omega Team. Oh yeah, and he's got a Silver Star. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is wild. It's an amazing career. We were talking last night. It was a super cool, kind of going down your history and just getting to know each other. But we always do this on everybody, and you've done it before. It's just like your origin story. Where do you come from, and like what was your motivation to join, or your family dynamics, or the situations that got you wanting to join?
Yeah, man. So I just grew up in Alabama, a country boy, just playing out in the woods with my brother, hunting, fishing, shooting BB guns and things of that nature, playing cowboys and Indians just like any other kid. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, my dad was in the military and he was an officer, but he never really pushed me to join. And I never really thought about it until I was about halfway through high school. I was like midway through high school, and all of a sudden I just had this urge. I'm like, man, I think it'd be kind of cool to be in the military. You know what I mean? So I went and signed up for a National Guard unit and then joined, and it was initially in a communications unit in Foley, Alabama, and then did that. And I was like, man, I kind of like this stuff. So ended up staying in, going to infantry, joining the regular army, and then, that's the story from there. But had a good family. I mean, we grew up really poor, but I didn't know it. Like, I thought we were super blessed, and it seemed like we had everything we needed, even though we probably were like below poverty line at the time. But my parents were good. My parents raised us right. They taught us discipline and morals and taught us to be tough, and I think that kind of sets you up for being in the military, especially in a special operations unit. Yeah.
What was it like in the 90s? I like talking guys in the 90s, like you grew up, you're a bit older than I am, but you went in the 90s, but also your father, you say he's a retired colonel.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And what was like, because I've heard about stories from the 90s, like military families. He was active duty. And so what was that like, because he wasn't even, I shouldn't say even, enlisted, struggled. What was the officer side like? Like you said, you guys were above the poverty line. Like, what was the military life like in the 90s? We're used to like GWAT, much bigger BAH, nicer housing. Like, even when I was in, they were busting down all the crappy housing and putting up new housing. The family structure is starting to get a little better, at least with support, and finances and stuff like that. But what was that like in the 90s growing up?
Well, actually, my dad was in the military like mid 80s through the 90s. And we were kind of living below the poverty line before he joined the military. That's kind of like why my dad joined the military, I think, because there was no real jobs where he could make good money where we lived. So he ended up joining the military. And our standard of living increased then. We lived in an apartment. We lived in a city. We had everything we needed. The military provided for us well through my father. It was before that, when I was younger, that we were kind of like living in poverty. But he was a colonel. My dad did a lot of things. He was different. He was infantry, started off infantry. Then he was also an engineer, and he's also quartermaster. So different branches there. He also worked for the Postal Service while on active duty. It's weird how that works. It was kind of a government job in the Guard. But I didn't really pay any attention to the military stuff. I knew he did this stuff, but it didn't really intrigue me until much later in life. And then I just kind of decided to do it on my own.
Yeah. And I remember hearing your story too. Would you initially try to do officer as well at one point?
Yeah. I went to a school called Marion Military Institute in Alabama. My dad was actually the professor of military science there. And he's like, you need to be an officer. Come join the military and be an officer. So I went there to school, did 2 years of school there. I excelled in all the physical stuff, right? I was physically fit. I was tough. I was like a PT. I was maxing the PT test. I was even in one of the elite units that they had there. Kind of like, it was based off of Rangers. They actually wore a black beret called the Swamp Foxes. And the selection to get into that was, believe it or not, when I went through was tougher than RIP to get into the Ranger Regiment. It was brutal. I mean, it's just straight hazing. They beat the crap out of you and stuff like that, and physically just destroyed you. But I did that and excelled at all that stuff. But I was still wanted to party. I was still young, so I was going out drinking and partying with dudes at night, and then not studying. And I would just do the bare minimum in my academic classes to get by. And I did really good in a lot of them because stuff was easy. But there was a couple classes I didn't like and didn't make the greatest grades. So I ended up having to take summer school after the end of my second year to get my commission and become an officer. So at the end of the year, I was just like, man, I don't know that I want to be an officer again or anymore. So I'm just going to get out and do something else. Because I had a special forces guy actually from 20th Group. We talked about that. Yeah. A special forces guy from 20th Group who was my TAC officer in my barracks. So he lived in the barracks with us, and he made sure that we were orderly in the barracks. But he was not the greatest role model because he just hung out and partied with me. He was an E5. He was probably 5 or 6 years older than me.
In 20th Group?
Yeah, in 20th
he's not
Group.
Gonna be,
he was an E5 in 20th Group. And this was like a side gig for him because he was in the Guard, but then his full-time job was a TAC officer at Marion. And he was like, dude, you don't want to be an officer, man. He's like, you need to go enlisted. He's like, you'd be a good Special Forces NCO. And that started getting me thinking. I never had thought about special operations. Didn't really even know what it was, really, honestly. I just knew about the military. And so that got me thinking. I started reading up some books on like Rangers and Special Forces and Delta Force and things like that. And it got me intrigued. So I left the military, went to the civilian world, started doing some construction work for a bit. And then next thing you know, the bug got back at me. And I was like, man, I want to go active duty in the military. And so that's what I did and enlisted.
It just like keeps latching on to you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what years then did you, like said, commit into going to active duty?
In 99.
99, okay.
Yeah, so I left college in the fall or the spring of 99, worked that summer, and in the fall of 99, September of 99, I went active duty in the military.
All right. And where'd you initially end up first then?
Fort Benning, Georgia, in 3rd Infantry Division, mechanized infantry.
Yeah.
So I was an infantry guy at that point. I'd done the MOS, AIT for infantry, because I went in the Guard, did boot camp, the split op program. So I did boot camp my junior year of high school, came back, finished my senior year, and then went and did AIT after that. So I was an infantry guy by trade, but they put me in a mechanized unit. Yeah. And I didn't really like that. I was like, I feel like I'm in a tin can, a death trap. You know what I mean? I was like, I want to be out where I can sneak around and stuff. Yeah. So I was one of the dismounts. So the foot soldiers that rides in the back of the Bradley. Okay. So I had some good leadership. They taught me a lot of field craft and tradecraft and stuff like that, how to be sneaky in the woods and stuff. I learned a good bit, but after a while, it just got old, man. I was just like, I need something bigger. I need to go bigger. And then, so I wanted to go Special Forces because I'd been exposed to them in college. And so like you, I signed up. I took the PT test. I did some of the pre-selection stuff and then had a date to go to SFAS. And then all of a sudden, I get orders to Korea. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to go to Korea. So I tried to get out of the orders to Korea, and I told the SF guys, I'm like, can you guys pull me from these orders to Korea so I can go to selection? And they're like, nope, you can't. We can't touch you. You got to go to Korea. So I ended up going to Korea for a year, and then that's when 9/11 happened while I was in Korea in the war.
And before 9/11, but what was Korea? Again, I love asking questions. What was the 90s like in the military? But Yeah, what was that like? Like, so you're in Bradley's. What's your guys' mentality? Like, I again enjoyed talking with Mike Burke about that. Like, what was the mentality before 9/11? You guys are in Cold War type, training, and then you go to Korea, which is, you have North Korea, South Korea. What was the mission over there that you were kind of, or what were you doing over there in that way?
We were always prepared to defend the DMZ, basically, right? So we were over there, and we were basically like the speed bump to slow down the North Koreans if they came to invade South Korea. So we trained in the field. It was kind of like more Vietnam era tactics, man. We were like camo painted up, bandanas on. Like I got old pictures like bandanas, camo painted, wearing the old BDUs and stuff like that, and combat boots. And just in the field, like living in the woods, man.
Yeah.
Like that's all we did in the 90s, just live in the woods. We were out there sleeping, getting up, going and fighting, doing some sort of training, moving through the woods, coming back, sleeping in the woods again, and doing it over and over for weeks and weeks at a time. Sometimes even in Korea, we'd go out for a month. We'd go out to some of these training areas for a month, and we're just living in the field for a month.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back and do rehash stuff, clean the vehicles, maintain our equipment and stuff, and then go back and do it again. But it was a lot of training, a lot of time in the field, ruck marching, walking, doing PT, staying fit, focusing for, like a wooded fight, you know what I mean? And then the war we ended up being in is in the desert, so it was completely different.
Yeah, completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you guys have any fun, like on the weekends? Would you do, typical type infantry guys? You guys get let loose a little bit in Korea? I've heard it's awesome. I've heard South Korea is cool. Like,
it can be. Yeah, it can be cool if you can maintain. Like a lot of guys get in trouble over there because they just go out and party and then they get drunk and then they get in trouble and stuff like that. So me and some of my buddies, the guys that I hung out with, luckily I got in touch with a good crew of guys. Yeah. And we worked out in the gym and tried to stay as in good a shape as we could because all of us were kind of training for like a special operations unit. But we would go out and party. We'd go out and there's all these bars and stuff you could go to, and there's drinky girls is what they call them. So they're like these girls will come up to you and try to love up all on you so that you'll buy them a drink. And the drinks cost like a ton of money. But you're just basically drinking drinks and then buying these girls drinks and they hang out with you and stuff like that. So dudes were all into that stuff. It wasn't really that kind of a thing for me. We just go out and hang out, let loose, drink some alcohol, and then come back and chill. And then work out. But we always went to the gym. We made sure we got a gym workout in before we go to town. So like going out, veins are popping when you go to town, you know what I mean?
Yep, I remember those days. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, we just trained hard, man. And most of the dudes that I was with, we worked out hard. That's like when I told you, I'm 6'2", roughly about the same height as like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he was like kind of like my icon at the time. So I wanted to look like him and lift like him. So we tried our best, man. I got up to like 240 pounds, like super shredded and lean at the time. But that kept us focused and kept us from getting in trouble. Was focusing on the fitness for different selections.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it's always fun to hear that. Like, it brings back memories too of like being in the Marine Corps, just like wake up hungover. I'd go run 4 or 5 miles, burn out the alcohol. And then we'd go to the gym, not eat. And then we'd like get that pump on. You're like, all right, let's go out again, and you're just like lean, you're like veiny, just like no nutrition whatsoever. But those are fun days.
I can't imagine training like hungover now.
My God, no.
And that's the thing. I never got hangovers back then.
Yeah.
I didn't get hangovers. Like I could drink a whole handle of whiskey and wake up like brand new, chipper in the morning. Let's roll and run. Not anymore. No. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't drink like I did ever, back then. I don't drink that much anymore, but even like 2 or 3 drinks nowadays, I'll be like, I feel a little groggy in the morning.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I have like those 2 bourbons I had last night. I was like, my dad came home. He's like, oh, you want another one? Because they're staying with us this week and they love the party. And I was like, no, like I got to get up. Like, I'll wake up like, why did I do that? Like, because it only takes 1 or 2 for me, and it's not good in the morning. And my daughter gets me up at night. So it's like,
how old is she?
5. She just turned 5. And so she's in that weird sleep phase where she comes taps me like, hey, you sleep in my bed? I was like, all right. So like 2:30 in the morning, got to get up, go over, like, pass out in her bed and be like, we're working on that sleep, what do you call it, not sleep scheduling, but the whatever, training to sleep, where she did it for a long time. And then she just like one day she just like flipped. And so we've been working on that. Yeah. But anyways,
do we care if we turn this heater off?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Turn it off. I do it because my guests freeze out constantly. So I burn up. Okay, yeah. Should be on the there you go. It'll count down. There, press that. There you go. Yeah. Starts counting down, yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm hot natured.
Oh, okay.
I have like high metabolism. So.
Oh, good. Okay, that's cool. It's funny because like I felt bad. I had a buddy up and his filmmaker friend. They run a streaming service and like literally, and I knew it was cold because even I was a little chilly. And then he just like dude podcast. He's like, dude, I'm freezing right now. Like, and they're from Georgia.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, I'm super cold right now. And I was like, I'm sorry. So I throw the heater on during the winters or even the April months right now. But yeah, so you're in Korea. And 9/11 happens. Where were you guys? And like, obviously, it's a pivotal moment for a lot of guys that joined the military and fought in the GWAT. Where were you guys? And you know, what was kind of the stuff that went through your head? Like, where are we going from here? You know, you're infantry, so you're, you know. And again, I like hearing the Marine stories. So the Marines are like, "Oh, we're going to war," and then they ground fight each other, and the Marines aren't involved. You know, so it's, or you know what I mean? Like, then, like nothing happens. But what was it like with you guys? You know, and over there.
So. We just like all of a sudden we were amped, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I joined the military to go to war, right? So now there's actually a war. So that was kind of cool. We felt like we could do our manly job now, you know what I mean? Mm. But then they locked everything down. We couldn't go out and party and stuff like we could. So they locked the base down and it was just the most ridiculous thing. Mm-hmm. They didn't even trust us with guns. No joke. Like we were guarding the front gate with axe handles. Literally, that was our weapon. If somebody bad comes in, we're supposed to hit them, club them with an axe handle. Mm. And then the dudes that later on, they finally let up on that. And we would actually patrol. And we were patrolling with axe handles. Like literally a squad of infantrymen were patrolling with axe handles in Korea to make sure that no Koreans were coming across, you know, or no terrorists were trying to come in and bomb the base. Yeah. And then eventually they said, they were like, okay, we're going to give you guys weapons and ammo. And we're like, what? We get real guns? We get to take out the real guns and put some ammo in? Mm-hmm. Nah. Yeah. Dude, they gave us magazines, dude. And the squad leader had to count each and every round that they put in there. And they had to put tape over top of the magazine so you couldn't load it. And then you stuff that magazine with the tape on it inside the mag well. So it gets in there and gets stuffed where you can't hardly get it out because of the tape. Yeah. And then if something were to happen, you have to take the mag out, rip the tape off, put it back in, and rack it to be able to shoot. That's how little they trusted us with our weapons. And, you know, I didn't realize it because I grew up with guns, right? I knew how to handle guns safely just because of growing up as a kid, hunting, fishing, carrying guns my whole life. So to me, it made no sense. But then later on in my life, I saw like, yeah, most military conventional forces aren't trained properly on guns. You know what I mean? Because dudes fire them off, they AD them, they shoot each other on accident. You know, we see that overseas in Afghanistan all the time. They have the clearing barrels, and it's like lock and clear your gun, and the regular army dude's like, bow, they're shooting it off in the barrel half the time. Because they don't know how to clear the guns. So I didn't understand that at the time, and it really bothered me. I'm like, we can't do anything. Like, I'm in the military. I'm a paid soldier, and I can't even carry live ammo, you know, in the way that it's supposed to be carried. So that was kind of frustrating. But then after that, you know, I was focusing on getting out. Like, I was focused on getting out of the military. I wanted out. I hated the Army so bad because of how fake it was. Like, I'm like a paid soldier, but I can't do anything real. We go to the range occasionally, shoot a couple rounds, and zero on a target maybe once a year. And then the rest of the time, we were just janitors, basically, cleaning the barracks, cutting the grass, picking up the weeds, you know, painting buildings and stuff like that. So I hated it. I was like, this isn't what I joined for. So then I bumped into a guy who was in Ranger Battalion, who was over there. And in Korea, they have this a ruck march they call the Manchu Mile. It's basically a 30-mile ruck march. The ruck's not that heavy. It's like 35 pounds, but you do it and you get a belt buckle after it. So we're in the middle of this ruck march, and I loved ruck march and always did. It's one of the things I did in my free time for fun, just for PT. So we're like halfway through this 30-miler, and and I was like, man, I love this stuff. And this dude was like, if you like this, then you need to be a Ranger. And I was like, oh, really? So I never even heard of the Ranger Regiment. So this guy talked me into going to the Ranger Regiment. So I re-enlisted for the Ranger Regiment, and then went there.
Yeah, that's some motivation to go like, yeah, I hate this, to be like, I'll give Rangers a shot.
Yeah. I hate it. And so, and I'm glad I did. And then once I got to Ranger Battalion, after I made it through RIP, which I went through RIP in 2002, so the GWAT had already been kicked off. They had already they'd already deployed twice to Afghanistan.
They're starting to cycle.
Yeah, they were already cycling. And I got to 3rd Ranger Battalion right after they came back from the 2nd deployment to Afghanistan.
And where's 3rd out of? Their
Fort Benning.
Is that
Georgia.
Okay, so Savannah area, but yeah.
No, yeah, Savannah's on the other side of the state by the beach.
Oh, okay.
And then Columbus, Georgia's on the opposite side next to Alabama. Oh, okay. It's only like 2 hours from where I live now.
Okay, got it. All right. Because I know a lot of guys, they said a lot of Ranger Regiment guys like going to Savannah to party and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. A lot of dudes want to go to First Back because it's on the beach and it's more of a party town.
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't want to go to 375 because they've been in basic training and AIT and airborne school and RIP and all that stuff at Fort Benning, and they're just like, I hate this place. I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there because it was close to home for me. And yeah, I enjoyed 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Yeah. So you're going through RIP in 2002. What was those feelings like? Like, hey, they're cycling in. Like, Rangers are actually getting after it. You know, I imagine that's because I come from the regular infantry. It's like, all right, we're lucky if we get picked to go do responding, but Rangers are actually proactive in like, hey, we're getting in, like, we're assisting again, like I said, assisting with Delta, assisting with whatever SOCOM or JSOC wants us to do. In those years, I mean, was that like a really cool feeling? Like, hey, this isn't like a maybe. This is going to be like a for sure thing.
Oh yeah, dude. When I got there, like, I'd never even heard of Ranger Regiment. I heard of Special Forces, Green Berets and stuff like that, but I never heard of Ranger Regiment. I was surprised that SF couldn't pull me from orders. Then I get to Ranger Battalion, they're like, nobody can touch you when you're here. Because the Ranger Regiment is such a high priority unit in the DOD, and it's because you're right. If there is a war, they will for sure be the first players involved. You know what I mean? With Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, whoever, Special Forces, however is playing in there, but the Rangers will be the first in. I mean, they're the forcible entry force for the U.S. military. I know, Mike Burke may have explained that to you, but we're basically the skeleton keys for the United States. Like, we can get into any world, any country, anywhere, any weather, any terrain, and breach that country and make an opening for other forces to come in and do their jobs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what was the RIP like, especially back in those days? Like, how challenging was it, running into adversity? Like, now you got combat vets coming back, so the hazing probably amplified just a slight bit more. Yeah. Like, you got legit combat vets coming back. We're like, oh, now we're really, really ready to fuck you up.
It was brutal, man. They didn't hold back anything, man. They didn't cut any slack. If you were wrong, they called you out on it and they destroyed you for it. And you only had so many chances and they would kick you out. So it was tough enough that back then they would have a class of probably 250 to 300 guys and it would whittle down to like 60, 70 guys, maybe, if that many. I've even had class when I was RIP Cadre that were like 250 dudes that we whittled down to like 12 dudes. So a lot. And these are dudes who have already been through infantry, all that kind of stuff, and then already through airborne school, and they want to do this. But a lot of guys just can't pass it physically, and then a lot of guys quit, But it was well worth it because when I got there, I remember I go to the range my first time. Remember, like I said, in the regular Army, we're shooting guns like once a year, if that, right? And I get to Ranger Battalion. As soon as I get there, like, we're at the range shooting day in, day out, CQB, clearing rooms, flat range shooting, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, and with like BDUs, no body armor, and a PC, like a soft cap, you know what I mean? Whereas in the regular Army, it was like full battle rattle, rack, body armor, helmet, eye pro, ear pro, just even be near the range, and you barely ever got to shoot. Whereas like here we were with no gear on in a comfortable environment. We wore and shot with gear too, but we were allowed to shoot without body armor. And I was like, this makes sense. This is how I shot in the, in the civilian world. And the rules were a lot more relaxed and the training was legit, man. So right off the bat, and then like you said, we knew we were going to war. They had already been. So it's like now you have like that motivation to legitimately train now. Like I was already training myself physically fit, to be physically fit. But now is even more so because I want to be able to beat all these dudes. I don't want to be the weakest link. And I do know for a fact I'm going to war now. So it was a huge mindset change. And it was a motivator, man. Because doing the other stuff, it's like we don't ever train. If we do go to war, we're going to get destroyed. But in the Ranger Regiment, you knew you were going to war and the training was good.
And then you're with like the best that, you're like, oh man, these guys are legit physically, training, everything that's going on. Equipment wise, I'm sure you guys are getting stacked up, Yeah. And so when you're going through RIP, when did you officially make the regiment or Rangers or get into your teams and everything like that? Like, what was your first experience kind of getting into that?
So, yeah, as a new guy on the team, you're just a sponge, man. You're trying to take in everything you can learn. So everybody in my squad had already been to combat. Like when I got there, everybody had already been to combat. So I'm the only cherry, you know what I mean? And I've been in the Army longer than some of the guys that were there because I'd been in the regular Army for like 3 years and was in the Guard before that. Had been to college to be an officer. So I had all this book knowledge on how to be a soldier, but I never had applied it. Whereas all these dudes, a lot of them didn't have a lot of the book knowledge that I had, but they had already applied it. So I was beneficial. I didn't get messed with too much because I knew my stuff. Like I had the 7-8, the infantry manual, pretty much memorized back then. But I just had to prove myself. So day in, day out, PT every single day, physical fitness in the Ranger Regiment is no joke. It's brutal. And my squad leader loved to run. And we talked about it. Like I was a bigger dude, kind of like you are. And I'm not the fastest runner, but dude, I had to be because my squad leader would take off at a 6 minute or sub 6 minute pace. And the whole squad, you got to keep up. And another thing a lot of people don't realize is not only are you doing PT, you're being smoked amongst the PT. So you're running 7 miles at a 6 minute pace with your squad leader. But every so often they're like, brown sign, go. And you know how it is on the military bases. Every time you turn around, there's a brown sign that says so-and-so building or Silver Star recipient this road is named after this Silver Star recipient or whatever. So we would have to sprint ahead of the squad, touch the brown sign, and then come back and jump right in and keep up with the pace. And it was brutal, man. I was throwing up the whole time, like running, throwing up, hopping back in. It wasn't just me. Everybody else was sucking too. But they PT'd our butts off.
Yeah, and like I said, that standard it's pretty cool to see that because you'll see some of the infantry units, you'll have really good PTers and they lead by example, or the guys that just sit back and haze you. But the fact that like your guys are like, oh no, like we run sub 6 minutes, and we're like not even, you could tell those guys like, we're good, but our new guys they're gonna suck at us,
dude.
So it's like setting that standard is huge because they're like, oh no, they did it right along with us,
And you're brawling. Yeah. And you're brawling during it too, because I forgot about that piece. So as you're going to touch the brown sign as a private, you better be first. If not, you're going to get destroyed even more. So other privates will attack you and throw you down so that you're behind and they can beat you back. So not only are you sprinting amongst the run, but you're fighting your Ranger buddies the whole time.
Just get to the side.
It's no joke. They're constantly sicking dudes on each other. I had this dude named Eric Frank. I still keep in touch with this guy. Amazing guy. He's a Special Forces Sergeant Major now. The dude was a beast though. He grew up doing jujitsu and stuff like that. He was a fighter, and they would always sick him on me because I was the other big dude. And he was shorter than me, but a lot stockier. And they would sick him on me, so I had to fight that dude all the time. And it made me a lot better, but that dude used to beat me down.
It sucks, yeah. And so doing all this work up, how long did that last then until you kind of like earned your way up to that first deployment? Like then it's like, all right, we're going back to war, time to cut your teeth, like I was fortunate, like just in my own experience was like, hey, we don't have time to haze you, we have to train you now.
Yeah.
So when did you start feeling that momentum of like, hey, we're starting to work up to our first overseas and we're going to be getting into it,
It was immediately, dude. Yeah. Because like I said, they had already deployed to combat twice already to Afghanistan. And then Iraq was in the mix at this point. So the buildup for Iraq happened right after I got there.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't hear about it until probably around December timeframe. December of, let's say, 2002, they started talking about, like, there was rumblings that, hey, we might go to war with Iraq. And then it got more formalized, and we trained for it. And then we jumped in. So I hadn't even been to Ranger school yet. I was still considered a Ranger private. So I was an E4 with no Ranger tab. And like you said, it's kind of a whole mind shift change. I'm like, holy crap. Now, not only am I about to go into combat, I'm going to get a combat infantryman's badge, but I'm going to jump into combat. So
his invasion. So you were part of the invasion.
Yeah.
Really?
So we flew over to Saudi Arabia and we staged there for a bit. And we were just training, rehearsing airfield seizures and stuff like that, which is what we did. And then eventually one of the days we loaded up. They're like, hey, it's time to go. Pack your stuff. We packed everything up, had all of our gear inspected, loaded on a plane. And we're flying. And the next thing you know, we're jumping into Iraq, into combat.
Man, where did you guys end up? Well, first off, what was that feeling like? Just like, oh shit, this is real.
Dude, it was the coolest thing ever, man. But also a little scary too, because initially we were going to jump into Baghdad International Airport, and that thing was heavily defended. And they estimated that we would have like 75% casualties. Like most of the planes wouldn't even make it there. They would get shot down. It was going to be like, we're thinking this is going to be like D-Day all over again. So there was a little fear there, you know what I mean? And then they changed and they're like, all right, we're not going to jump there. We can't expect that many casualties. We're going to jump to another airfield and then move over and do other things as well. So we did it, and the jump was crazy, man. We all had legitimate 100-pound rucksacks back then. And I've carried rucks that heavy before. I'd never had jumped a ruck that heavy though. But every dude had like mortar rounds and grenades and explosives, not only your own explosives, but you had extra, and we had to carry mortars for the mortar guys, and we had to carry different things like that. So we had claymores and frags and all stuff. So our rucks were super heavy. And then we're flying at like 35,000 feet, and the plane literally dives and then pulls up at like 500 feet, and then we bail out of that.
No shit.
Dude, it was crazy. You know the cable that runs that you hook your static line up to? Dudes were hanging onto that thing, dude. Like, that thing was down here by like my waist, bro. Like, cause dudes were like, oh, like hanging onto it. Cause you're rigged with your parachute. We had our parachutes, our rucks, and everything for like a 3-hour flight. Flying up, doing all these maneuvers, and then flying in. And then we dive in. Now you're standing up with all this gear. And as the plane pulls up, now the G forces are driving you into the floor with all this weight. So we're all hanging onto the cable. That thing's bent down here. And then all of a sudden, I see stand up, get up, hook up, get ready to go. You know, all the commands and stuff. And my platoon sergeant raises the door up. And his name's Ray Reed. Good dude. Still keep in touch with that guy as well. Big bald head guy, big jack dude. Looks like, trying to think, one of the pro wrestlers. Dang, I'll think of it later on. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He looked like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Just a beast, man. He raises the door up, and I swear dust came in from the door. And I'm like, what the heck? There's like this haze. And he's like, go, 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 go. And we're just piling out this plane. Yeah. Parachute opens up. My parachute opens up, and we jumped in like mop level, like the chemical suits. Mm-hmm. But we had our mask between our legs or in the front. And so as I jumped, my pro mask, the gas mask, got between my legs. So I can't put my feet and knees together to land like I'm supposed to and not get hurt. So I'm trying to get that thing out from underneath my legs. Oh, dude, hit the ground. Like, that's how low we jumped. And I don't know the official height, but we trained to jump as low as 800 feet. But I think from what I heard, I think we jumped about 500 feet on that jump. Oh, no shit. Super low. Dude, we are out, boom, parachute open. A couple seconds later, you're on the ground. Poof.
So how did that feel? Like, just like, did you, with that haze, did you guys jump during the day, or was it at night?
It was nighttime.
Yeah.
So like through night vision, you could see it, you know what I mean, out there, or through the green lights that were shining in the plane. Cause I don't think we jumped back then. I don't think we jumped with night vision on, but we had them in a bag. And then once we got to the ground, we'd put them on, because it's a lot of shock, that static line, it rip them off. But the green lights, you could see that little haze. And then once we jumped out, man, like I said, it's pretty quick to hit the ground, and it hurt, man. I hit the ground, feet, butt, head. Ended up breaking my tailbone on the landing because I just wasn't prepared to land. I was trying to fix myself, but I didn't have that much time. So there was a lot of dudes that got hurt. Dudes, I think there was like 8 or 10 dudes from my company that got broken. Like, they had to get evac'd after that jump. But I got up, got my stuff on, started looking around. I knew where the objective was. So I was like navigating by myself to the objective. And as you walk, it's just other Rangers come in. Hey, what's up, Ranger buddy? Now we got a 2-man team. There's a 3-man team, and we're all working together. And then we link up with our squads and with our platoon. And then we moved out to the target and started clearing the target. And we hit that target at night, and we cleared all through the night, all the way until the day before we finally cleared. It was a huge target.
What were you guys hitting, or what was your objective?
It was like a big oil refinery type thing. There was all kinds of tanks and buildings and all kinds of stuff. A lot of it looked kind of like it had been abandoned, and there was nobody there, not a soul. But there were people there when we jumped, but they saw us jumping in and they flee. They haul butt. You see cars like driving off as we were under parachute coming down. And even after we got to the ground, they were driving off. So when we got there was nobody there. But we had to take it seriously. We thought there was going to be a threat. There could be a threat there. So we ended up clearing it, didn't encounter anything. And then we set that place up as our staging base and started patrolling out of there.
Where was that located in Iraq? Like, do you remember?
It was in the western desert. So like if you look at Iraq, it's kind of like this triangle. It was out to the western side, not all the way out to Syria out there, but a good ways out there. It was in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It was like a couple hour drive from there across the desert just to get to like even near Baghdad.
Now that's a combat jump too, correct? So
Yeah.
you got, what are they? I don't even know.
The mustard stain.
Mustard stain. Yeah, I'm in the Marine Corps, so we. I hear about it from the army, my army buddies. But that's awesome. So you got the combat jump in, and then so you guys are. What was that first deployment like then? Ranger? Like you said, you cleared it, nothing happened. What was there follow on? Because I know things are sporadic all over the invasion. Some guys are making contact, like you guys are like, hey, this is clear, that type of stuff.
Well, it was not what I expected, right? Like I thought it was going to be this like Vietnam, like World War II. These are the wars that I had seen, right, or had read about. It just wasn't like that. It was hard to find bad guys to fight. Like nobody wanted to fight us. We didn't see any bad guys really. We were out patrolling and stuff, and then eventually we did some ambushes. We did an ambush on they call it lock interdiction, which is lines of communication interdiction. So fuel trucks would come down and we would just blow up the fuel trucks. Like we just shoot them up with machine guns so they catch on fire, and when the dudes get out, we shoot them, or shoot them up with the truck. But it was like, man, these guys aren't even fighting us, bro. It's like we're killing civilians, that are just transporting fuel. I'm like, man, it's cool and all. I got to shoot at some people, but just not that cool yet. Not what I thought. And then we ended up setting up a patrol base out in the desert, just Humvees on the side of a hill somewhere, kind of in the low spot between some hills. And we're sitting there, and some of the platoon went out and did some stuff, and I was gone, and then other dudes stayed back. Well, while they were back in the rear, a car came up to our patrol base, and me and my squad were out doing some other stuff. And this car pulls up, and it's a pregnant woman, and they're asking for water. And they're like, hey, I need water. And all the guys, like men, we want to take care of women and children and people. So they run to go bring her some water, and they detonated the car and killed 3 of our dudes. Oh, shit. Yeah, so we were like pissed at that point. We're like, oh, this is real now. So then we took out vengeance on that, man. We went out, we ended up getting a mission to go to the Haditha Dam. There was guys fighting around that. I was only there temporarily. We were kind of doing some things in support of that. But we cleared a bunch of bunkers filled with all kinds of sarin gas and like all the stuff you see in the movies, like all the chemical warfare stuff, tons of that stuff in there. Explosives, mortar rounds, all kinds of stuff.
Near the Haditha Dam or in that area?
Not too far from it. I can't remember exactly where it was, but not too far from it. Maybe an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from, not too far from the Haditha Dam. Actually, a couple hours from where we jumped in though. But we did that stuff, and then, as you know, Bravo Company from 3rd Ranger Battalion was on the dam, and they were fighting it out against an entire battalion. They had like an armor battalion, and I think like an infantry battalion that they were legit soldiers that they were fighting against, and they wiped them dudes out. But I flew into the dam right after one of these big missions to medevac some dudes. So I was the security from medevac, my squad was. So that first deployment was cool. We got to do some things, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It took a couple more deployments before I started really getting into some legit gunfights.
So then you do that deployment, you get back. What's the workup like then? That like you start seeing that momentum, funding, gear, training. I mean, your seniors had seen it or like had gone to Afghanistan. What's that like then coming out? Like I said, I was like saying coming out of the 90s, but now you're in the 2000s, but now you're in the GWAT and things are rolling.
Yeah. So after that, it ended up being to the point where, we know this is going to be sustained. Like at first I was like, I got to get over there and get to war before it's over with. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was going to be over with, but then we realized that it was going to be sustained. And so then we started planning, the leadership. I was involved in this because I was just a little guy at the time, but they started planning and setting it up. So we would do certain things that we had to check that block in the training cycle before we go back. Airfield seizure, you know what I mean? What we did in Iraq, jump in, seize an airfield. So we did that. CQB, hostage rescue training and stuff like that in support of like Delta Force and things of that nature. Doing all the regular training, patrolling stuff, ruck marches, making sure we're fit, and then go right back and do it again. And then it just went again and again and again, year after year after year. And then the funding, like you said, just started increasing because there was a ton of money dumped into this war. And JSOC had virtually unlimited funding. I mean, almost. It wasn't really unlimited, but it seemed that way. And that trickled down to Ranger Battalion because Ranger Battalion is basically, the right-hand man. They're the right-hand guy of JSOC. I mean, they're the helpers that help Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 and stuff like that. So then they started using Rangers because there were so many missions that they didn't have enough Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 to do these missions. So they were putting Rangers on a lot of these missions, and Rangers did good. I mean, honestly, most of all the missions that we did in Afghanistan, that even Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 did, were like basically Ranger missions. They were basic Ranger missions. But our government, because of the lack of trust in the soldiers, they just wanted to use the best dudes for even these basic infantry missions. But they used Rangers, and Rangers did really good. So Then they started funding the Ranger Regiment even more to build them up just like these other units, so that they had the same capabilities, the same equipment, the same stuff to operate just like Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. And it took a couple years, but I mean, even early in the GWAT, we were outfitted, Rangers were outfitted much better than most other soft troops.
And then, so like you said, you're coming back after that first deployment, things are picking up, like you said, the whole explanation there. What was like the things that you noticed? Like, is it like you guys getting better CQB training? You getting, like anything that stood out that you came back, you're like, oh man, we're finally getting some of this cool stuff. Or, like what got you excited after that?
It was the individual training, right? Because we did the collective training. We always had to do collective training, airfield seizures, CQB, things of that nature. But then they started sending every individual Ranger during the training cycles to, like, there was a certain point in time where they would cut everybody loose for like a month. And like you would go to advanced medical training. I'd go to hot wire training, learn how to hot wire cars. And another dude would be going to explosive breacher training, basic demo or advanced demo. And then dudes are doing like shooting courses and sniper courses and CQB courses and stuff like that. And a lot of the CQB courses that we did, we would send Rangers up to Delta Force to their compound and they would just train with them. And then these guys would come back and teach it to the Ranger Battalion guys. So it was all like train the trainer stuff, but I mean, cool stuff, man. Yeah. Driving courses, off-road driving courses, vehicle recovery courses, shooting, tracking schools, advanced medical, you name it. Like we got to do these courses. And then guys would go to other schools too, like scuba school or free fall school or things of that nature, sniper school and things of that nature that they needed for their skill set. But it was fun, man. We stayed busy and then we did all of our collective training. Then we'd rotate overseas. We'd learn lessons from the deployments that we did. And then we'd take the information that we learned from these lessons and bring it back and change the way that we fought to be more effective.
Was there anything, so that it was there one school that you did that stood out? You're like, man, I got that school under my belt. That was awesome.
Really, probably the hardest school for anybody to get in the military is free fall school. So I got to get that, but not till later in my career when I went to RRC.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the ones that I got to get that I wanted. I mean, I got to do anything. The only school that I didn't go to that I always wanted to go to was scuba school.
That's what everybody keeps saying. I knew Delta guys are like, man, that one eluded me.
That's the one because nobody uses it. Yeah, I mean, like even the SEALs don't do dive stuff. You know what I mean? Like they train, but there's no missions for that really. Like not a lot anyway. Yeah. So it's one of those things we didn't need, but I wanted to go because scuba school is a hard school. The combat diver in the military in the Army is a tough school.
It's no joke. Yeah, I had one of the guys I work with at IDS. He was a Ranger in that era, and he was actually. Do you remember Surviving the Cut, the series?
Yeah,
he was in it.
Really?
At the combat diver. Yeah.
Really?
Down a Frio, and
nice.
And I was like, that's you because he had a beard. And then I rewatched it, and I'm like, oh, you don't have a beard. He shaved obviously because he's in the Army. And I was like, oh, man, that's super cool. And he ended up being an instructor, but he was a Ranger, and they sent him over that way. And then he ended up just staying, being an instructor. But
what was his name?
Donofrio was his last name. I don't remember his first name.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'd have to look at, I think, on Instagram. But, so kind of backtrack a little bit. So how many did you go from, like, that first invasion to, how many deployments did you do while you're still or in that kind of era of where you're at the Rangers?
I deployed until 2005. So I can't remember how many deployments I got in by then, maybe 4 or 5 deployments by 2005.
Because you guys do 3 months. Yeah, it's like back
3 months. Dude, we would go 3 months over, 6 months back, and then we're back over. That was how quick the rotation was. Then they ended up extending it a little bit. So we would do 4-month deployments and then have 8 months to train back. But yeah, we were busy, and I in that era up until about 2005. 2005 is when we went to Iraq. Again, that's when I got wounded, got the Silver Star and stuff like that, and that's where kind of things changed for me because I had to heal this arm up. So another dude, one of my team leaders, took over my squad leader because I couldn't jump during that training cycle. I had to get surgery and had to wear a brace for like 4 months or something like that. Not that long, maybe 2 or 3 months. No. But he ended up taking over my squad. It was kind of my time was kind of up as squad leader anyway. So I did another deployment, kind of doing support stuff, supporting my squad while also being the NCOIC of our interrogation facility that we had overseas. And so did that. And then after that, transitioned to being RIP Cadre and did that for a while so that I could continue to heal up. And then, and then after that, saw some RRC guys, and I'm like, got to do that. You know what I mean?
Hey, before we get to that, we'll dive into your Silver Star run, which we talked a little bit last night, which is incredible. What was I can start there. What was the mission that led up to that, and like, what was the atmosphere like for you guys? Because what were you on your third deployment at that time, or like fourth? Because you were pretty
fourth or fifth probably
pretty
at the
salty
time.
Yeah. So you were a squad leader. How does that break down in?
Yeah, so I was a squad leader. I was the senior squad leader in the platoon. So I'd been a squad leader longer than any of the other guys at that time. And so we just went out and we did raids. We had reformed our platoons. Instead of being set up like an infantry platoon, our platoons were set up like a Delta Force troop. So my squad was stacked, dude. It was me as the E6 squad leader, and then I had 2 E5 team leaders, and then 2 more E5s within my squad, and then a tab E4. So my lowest ranking dude was an E4, and we had like 5 or 6 dudes per squad typically. And so as the squad leader, I was the lead assaulter. So I would go up, I would set the demo charges, pull back, breach the door, and then be the lead assaulter going in. That's the way we were running it. So the Talafar one where I got the Silver Star, we had been planning it. We did a raid in Mosul. That's where we were at. And then after that, we pushed to Talafar. And so we got in a little gunfight in Mosul, killed a bunch of dudes, and then we went over to Talafar, and we were supposed to hit 3 targets there. So as we went in, there was like a regular army unit outside, and the whole city was cordoned off because it was so bad, nobody could go in there. Like when they would take tanks in there, like the drivers would get shot. They'd get smoked in the head. So they asked us to go in there, basically hit a couple targets and bust it all up so that they could operate in there. So we went in to hit this target just like normal. It was actually my day not to be the lead assaulter because we rotated, you know what I mean, squads. So I always wanted to be the first dude in the house, my squad at least. But on this one, I was last. So we had a squad stacked over here, another squad stacked, and I was stacked across the way, cross-coveraging the roof of the target building as these dudes were getting to breach. And when they went up to breach, one of my buddy squad leaders went up, and they were going to do a silent breach. And then all of a sudden, bad guy opened the door. And he opens the door, sees our guys, and then he shuts the door. Excuse me. And so then the squad leader's like, compromise over the radio, goes in the door, and immediately, I mean, it was quick. As soon as him and his squad entered the door, a grenade goes off and like just tears their legs all up. And so these dudes are all wounded. Going in, the second squad hesitated for just a second. And I think that because they were like, what the heck just happened? And so I could see this from across the way. So I didn't follow the plan and actually went ahead in front of that squad and went in there. And once we went in to the room, there was like kind of like a foyer type area with like a room on the left or right and a room on the left and then another room on the right and another room on the left. And then it opened up to a big open air courtyard with a stairwell that goes up to the roof and side rooms. So as we go into there, my platoon leader is like firing and he's like, Mike, get in there. He's like, there's somebody just ran in this room. So I go in, clear a room, go into the left, and I see one of our E4s from another squad. He's like on his hands, like this, dragging himself back into the room. And he's like, Sergeant, I'm all messed up. And I look at him, hit him with my attack light. He's in there. There's no bad guys in the room. It's just him. And he's all jacked up. And I'm like, hey, dude, you got to have to do self-aid, man. You're good. Patch yourself up. I got to keep clearing. So we went to the next room, and I see one of my buddies, a dude named Elliot. He's a squad leader, and he's standing there leaning against the wall, and like blood's like streaming out of his arm, and he's holding pressure on his arm. And I hit him up. I'm like, you good, dude? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. So then we roll out from there, go into the next room, or getting ready to go in the next room. My platoon leader was like, Mike, I need you to go in that room now. A dude just went in there with an AK. And then he sprays into the room. He's like, bah, 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 bah. He's like, go in. So I just go in right behind his gunfire because he's firing from across the hall into this room. Dude, we go into that room. I was the first one in, dude. It was the most like tense thing I've ever felt because we're in a gunfight. Like grenades are falling. Dudes are shooting at us. Grenades are blowing up all over the place. And like now a dude went in this room and he's probably waiting for me to come through the door. And like, this is like, I know that he's in there, right? Mm-hmm. So I go into that door and I'm like puckered up so hard, just like, get in the room. Nobody's there, dude. And there's nowhere for anyone to have gone. It's like the dude disappeared. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what the heck? So we clear that room, come back out, and my platoon leader's like, Mike, stack on me. My platoon leader was all in the mix of it. This dude's named Ryan Kelly. He's a special forces officer now. Such a good dude. He's like up in the mix. He's like, Mike, on me, let's go. And so we go to the door, and then I get in front of him. He ended up pushing me into the front of him because, he's supposed to not be in the front. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I go to the front, and as we stack on the door, a grenade rolls to the door. And I'm looking at it, and then back to my right, like literally like 5 feet over this way, is my roommate laid there, who ended up taking my squad over after that deployment. He's laid up, grenade shrapnel on his legs. His body armor is taken off because the docs are working on him right there in this area. And so I see this grenade roll, and I'm like, if I just leave that grenade there, it's going to blow these dudes up. So, like, you know, this is all going on in microseconds. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm like, this grenade's here. What do I do with it? Do I kick it? Do I grab it or what? And I'm just like, man, I'm about to be an ugly son of a gun because I'm thinking it's about to blow up in my face. And so I just booted that thing. I kicked it back in the room, and I kicked it, and I turned. And as I turned, I caught grenade shot on my backside, on all my left leg and my back. Most of it got stopped by my body armor, but I got some in my lat and some in my leg and my butt. It's superficial, just went slightly under the skin, and that's it. But my body protected these dudes. I dove on top of my buddy and to shield him with my body armor, and it saved him. And like, it protected him. I don't know that I saved him, but he didn't get messed up. Yeah. And so then after that, I get up. My platoon leader dove into another room. Now a machine gun is firing at us. I can't talk to anybody on the radio. I'm trying to call platoon leader, platoon sergeant. Nobody's answering because they're pinned down in another room. So I just took charge with my squad. I'm like, hey, let's continue clearing. So we continued clearing across the room. And then as we go into the big open courtyard, I put one of my dudes on a stairwell to guard the stairwell. As we push across to the next room, we were going to clear it in like a counterclockwise manner. And we push across, and then all of a sudden a machine gun burst opens up as we're completely out in the open, like firing straight at us. But somehow, and I was in the front, somehow all these shots missed me, but it hit one of my dudes behind me, who was a smaller dude than me. I don't know, just the angle or what. But he took a shot straight into the shoulder from a machine gun. The bullet went in, deflected down, so it didn't go through his bone. It just deflected down, but it blew out this artery. So like, he's bleeding bad. And then another shot hit him in his knee, like dead in the knee. So this dude's messed up pretty bad. And I didn't know this at the time. I'm just moving to the target. Machine gun burst goes off, engage, and then keep going. Go into this room. And when the dude shot, I engaged. Me and a couple other dudes engaged, killed those dudes, or at least neutralized that threat temporarily, or at least, you know, I don't know if it was other dudes that shot at us later, but I think we shot those dudes. Moved in to clear another room, and as I go through to clear this other room, and I turn around to clear, I notice I only have one dude with me. I'm like, where the heck is the rest of my other 4 or 5, 3 or 4 dudes? And I look back, and one of my team leaders was behind me, and he saw this dude get shot in the shoulder and the leg, and he's treating that guy. Like, he was an EMT. Thank God for the advanced medical training we all had. So he's patching this dude up, completely saved that dude's life. And that dude only got like a Bronze Star, man. That dude should have got a Silver Star or a Medal of Honor too. And that dude's name is Jeremiah Daigle, such a good dude, but he took care, he saved that dude's life. And then after that, we continued clearing. There was not a lot of communication from, like I said, the platoon leader and platoon sergeant. Our commander was on the roof, pinned down by machine gun fire. One of my buddies, who was a sniper, was up there on the roof telling me about it. He was like, man, it was bad, dude. We couldn't even get a shot off. And then he just pops up with his sniper rifle and just exposed himself and took out this machine gun. Thank God. Well, then after that, I start seeing all the casualties we have, and dudes are like, dude, this guy's jacked up. This guy's jacked up. I'm wounded. I can't even use my right hand. It's so swollen up. It's been patched up, but I can't use my hand because it's so swollen. And so then I'm like, hey, we need to bring the medevac up. So I called in the medevac strikers that we had. We were rolling in strikers, which are like armored vehicles at the time. And I called them in and started loading the casualties, because then, I mean, we were still in a gunfight fighting, but I was like, we got to get these casualties out of here, and we got to get the heck off of this target, man, because we need to bomb this place. So I got everybody that was wounded loaded up and out of there, and we exfilled from the target and then called in AC-130s and just leveled that entire city block pretty much. AC-130s, big bombs. I don't even know the munitions that were dropped. That was above my level at the time, but all I know is they wiped out some dudes. And I think they said we probably killed about 40 to 50 dudes on that target with about a 20-man platoon of assaulters. And then they killed hundreds more with the strike after that. Yeah. But yeah, then we get back to the back, and Jack Murphy, asked him about, he was there.
Oh no shit, Jack was there? Okay.
Jack was there. Like, I forgot he was there because he was a new private at the time. But he told me, I think last time I was on the team house, he was like, man, I remember you guys came back and we let the ramps down the strikers, and he's like, blood just poured off the back of the ramp. Because we had so many dudes just bleeding like crazy for a 2-hour drive back, dude. We medevaced the dudes that needed it by helicopter, but me and all the other dudes who were like wounded, not as bad, we just bled it all the way back to the rear. Yeah. And those dudes had to clean it all up. And he's like, man, we're in there with hoses spraying, and like blood is just pouring down the back of the ramp.
So what did you guys? I mean, did you guys get intel what that was? Is just an insurgent stronghold or that target package or?
Yeah,
it was
that's what it
bigger
was.
than what you guys expected, or well, how do you guys plan for that if you knew there was 50 guys? Or what kind of intel did you have before you rolled in? I mean, it's an incredible story, and
we didn't know. So we didn't know specifically. We just had a couple targets, and we were looking for targeted individuals off at like SIGINT, you know what I mean, tracking them that way. But we didn't have a whole lot of details. I mean, this was still in the beginning, not in the beginning, but this was, we were kind of still figuring things out. But we had intended to hit these targets, but the reason that it went that way is because we got compromised. So we were planning on sneaking in, hitting the target, and the dudes would probably be asleep when we cleared it. But the regular army didn't listen to us. They flew a Kiowa helicopter right over top of the target, all loud, right before we breached, and it woke the guys up on the roof. Because how they do, they sleep on the roof, right? Mm-hmm. So we even parked our strikers way down the road and snuck in, like creeping down the streets so that we didn't make any noise. That was our thing. We were trying to go in sneaky and hit the house before they even knew we were there. But as we're stacked on the door, or getting ready to stack on the door, a helicopter flies over. It's like, brrr, little Kiowa, super loud little helicopter. So then we hear over the radio that the bad guys are awake. There's dudes moving around the house. So they were ready for us when we got there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, we probably should have taken more people with us. But I mean, hey, we made it out.
Yeah, you only had the intel.
We made it out of there alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible story. We were talking about it last night, and I was like, we got to talk about this. This is amazing. I mean, that's it's an honor to, I appreciate you telling that story on the podcast. It's awesome. I mean, that's as just stuff like that. I mean, it's awesome to hear that. Like hearing from another, guy of your status, or just like, dude, this is what happened. And especially in those early years when the insurgency was like, we were used to, they were more scattered, but you guys had them condensed into that building. I mean, that's, taking on 50, 100 dudes.
Well, that's what we did, man. So we did that in Fallujah too, and Ramadi. Like the Marines were in there. Yeah. And remember, you guys were clearing, and then the Marines would get to a spot where they were just hitting so much resistance. They were taking tons of casualties because they were doing a lot of this in the daytime. So then they would call us, and we'd fly in at night and just smack targets. Mm-hmm. And then they would be able to clear. So that's basically what we did in Iraq. We were a lot of times supporting conventional forces. We did our own stuff, like our own HVT raids. But then if we didn't have anything to do and the Marines needed help, we'd go raid targets and bust up strongholds for them.
And what year was that Silver Star run?
2005.
2005, okay. So that's the thick of it.
Yeah.
And so what was, you took your shrapnel, you're wounded, what was... what happened? What's the follow on? What's the aftermath? How were guys physically, psychologically? That's a pretty big battle. That's just that. It's not your regular, hard knock. That's different.
That one shook me a little bit, dude. It probably shook everybody because I saw one of my dudes almost die, man. And I remember we got back and I went to see him at the hospital, and dude was so swollen up, man. Probably because they pumped him full of so much IV stuff and fluid. But he's just so swollen up, and he looked like he was dead. And that dude lived and still alive today, as far as I know. Haven't talked to him in a while, but it was like, man, we're not invincible, man. You know what I mean? I thought, it seems like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You're invincible, right? But I was like, man, I'm not invincible. I could have died just then. So that was the first mission that clicked for me. And then it was, and that wasn't the end of the deployment. We had another 2 or 3 weeks left. But we went back, and I was unable to function. And my first sergeant was like, "Hey, do you wanna stay here with us and stay in the rear and watch the guys go out on missions, or do you want to go back and escort the dudes going back that are wounded?" And I was like, "Dude, I want to go back home. I don't want to sit here and watch these dudes and not be able to go out. I want to be where I can't know what's going on." You know what I mean? And so they sent me back. I was the rear detachment NCOIC that went back with the wounded dudes, because there was a good many wounded dudes. I mean, 15 or 20 dudes. 12 to 15 guys or so probably went back that were wounded
from that battle,
from that mission. There was a lot of dudes that got tore up. I mean, we all lived, but a lot of dudes got shot up pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, damn,
on that mission.
Yeah, that's a hell of a hell of a mission. That's crazy. So you end up going back. Then what was what do you do after that? How do you recover and start getting back into the groove?
Well, because my wounds are so minor, they didn't do surgery. They didn't want to do surgery on me there. They wanted to send me back to the States to do the surgery. So I went back to the States, got the surgery, I believe. I'm trying to remember now. I got the surgery on my wrist and then recovered. They put a brace on me, and I was just kind of hanging back until the guys came back from deployment a couple weeks later. And then when they came back, it's right in the saddle, right? Yeah. Jumping back in, doing that stuff again. So we came back, and I ended up swapping off with another guy who took over my squad as a squad leader. He was also wounded too, but then they wanted me to go be cadre at our selection process. So I came back and went and did that. My first sergeant, actually, I still talk to this dude to this day, good dude. He ended up going to be the NCOIC, or the sergeant major, essentially, of our selection. And he wanted me to come with him. He's like, I want you to come with me. And so he took me with him. And that provided me the opportunity to heal up a little bit more. And then I just trained and PT'd and was in good shape and crushed dudes when they came through selection for like 2 years. And then I got exposed to the Omega program while I was cadre, because I did 2 years as cadre for RIP at the time. And there's times in there where like they need guys, they'll take guys from there to augment the units for deployments. And so the first sergeant came to me. He's like, hey, dude, you want to go do this Omega deployment? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And he goes, well, you're going to wear civilian clothes. You get to grow your beard out and all this kind of stuff. And we're going to give you some money for civilian clothes and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, sweet. I'm like, this is cool, because as a line Ranger Battalion guy, you don't get to do that stuff that often. It's kind of few and far between. I had other buddies who I'd see get to grow their beard, and they'd go over to Pakistan or some weird place like that, assigned to some weird thing. And now I was getting to do it. And so I got to go do that, and that was my first exposure to the Omega program. And I was the only Ranger assigned to SEAL Team 6 at the time. So like there was a group of SEAL Team 6 dudes at the outstation that I was at, and I flew over there, showed up, and then I was surprised, man. I didn't like SEAL Team 6, to be honest with you, at the time, because the only ones I had worked with was mainly Blue Squadron, who was associated. They were in alignment with 3rd Ranger Battalion. So when we would deploy, Blue Squadron would be the SEAL Team 6 guys that we worked with, and we hated them. They were out of shape. They were just jerks, man. They treated us like we were subhuman. They treated us like we were subhuman. They were just jerks. They were like not physically fit. They abused our guys, and so we didn't like them. So I'm like, bro, I'm gonna be working with SEAL Team 6. So I show up, and it's Red Squadron that I'm over there with, because I'm on a different rotation now. I'm not over there with 375. I think I was over there with 175. And so I get there, and these dudes greeted me at the airfield like I was their long-lost brother. I was like, what's up, dude? Yeah. I was like, I like these guys. Maybe I judged SEAL Team 6 wrong. And I had an amazing time with those guys. They were so professional, man. They were just amazing dudes. And the team leader was like, hey, man, like at the time, he was the most senior dude of all their guys there, and he had 8 combat deployments. And I remember at the time he asked me when I got there, he's like, how many deployments you got? And I was like, 8. He's like, dang, you got more deployments than anybody here except me. So he's like, I'm going to make you the assistant team leader. Because there was times when we had to split the team. And when we did, they would go out with a strike force with the Rangers, because the Rangers were smacking targets down south. And the SEAL Team 6 dudes from Omega wanted to go with them because it was lucrative to kill bad guys. And so then he would send me with the agency. So I would do the agency missions, which are a lot of times lower on the level, and they weren't as kinetic, I should say. So nobody wants to go on a mission when you're not going to kill bad guys. So that was kind of the sucky part of it. But then the agency started getting into some gunfights, and then I was on those missions, so I got to enjoy it. Yeah. But
just to back up a little bit, so what was the Omega program, and like, you know, what was your role? Like, what was kind of the training, or the overall mission?
Well, the mission was basically like a force multiplier. It's kind of like a Green Beret, like Special Forces mission, to be honest. It's literally right up their alley. Like, it should have been probably Green Berets doing the Omega program. Because what we did is we had local national Afghans that were trained by the agency, and they were very well funded too. They were the most well funded of all the Afghans, special ops troops out there, and very well trained, and they had been thoroughly vetted. So these dudes were loyal. They were hardcore fighters for the most part. Some of them not so much, but and they were trained the way that we fight for the most part. So what my job was later on when I became the Omega team leader at the next trip, So as the Omega team leader, you're in charge of bringing a bunch of JSOC dudes with the JSOC training and assets, the JSOC assets, helicopters, fires, platforms, ISR, all those things. But then we augmented the CIA with their indige. So their indige would do the fighting. We would lead them in combat. So we were their, like the CIA dudes would be their squad leaders and their platoon sergeants. And then I was the ground force commander. So, and then my team was like basically the staff that ran the missions. And the SEAL Team 6 dude ran it for that trip, and I was the assistant team leader.
Because it sounds like, so it's like CIA's running this program. It's like, and again, I agree with you. It's like, it sounds like very Green Beret type. Was their mission sets this different though? Was it like very specific targets or very specific things? Because the Green Berets, because I worked with 20th and 10th, you know, and they're working with the commandos, you know, so it's like they have an AO almost opposed to, did you guys just have like a target list or like kind of just your own sustained little force that was like, these are the things we're going after?
Yeah, it was our own little sustained little force.
Okay.
And the agency brought in their own targets through their systems, through their their intelligence network that they have. That's really robust.
Yeah.
And then I would get targets passed down to me from JSOC that we could action as well. So typically these are targets that JSOC didn't want to mess with because they were too low. So JSOC would push the trash targets to the agency, and then we would help them hit those targets basically.
And how were those guys? I mean, you talk about like those Afghans, and I was listening to you on the team house. I mean, they were pretty proficient. I'm used to the A&A, when I did my combat advisor tour. So very low compared to like what you guys are working with, but how proficient were they? I mean, you trusted them in a gunfight? Were they on it? What kind of equipment did they have? Just kind of what was that life like?
It was decent. Their equipment was better because they weren't rocking. I'm trying to remember. I know the guys we had later on weren't, but they were rocking like American night vision, like better night vision. Yeah. They were rocking American gear and in AR-15s rather than AKs. So, and they had the legit equipment. I mean, they were outfitted like a regular Army infantry unit, I should say. But that was really good for the indige. And these guys were, some of them really loyal and some of them were really tough fighters, but some of them weren't. We'd have dudes hide. Sometimes when the gunfight would get bad, they would hide and just lay there and hide the whole time. We're like, dude, get up and fight, bro. Come on. So it was a mixed bag.
Yeah. Was there any successes that stood out to you? Like in any of those hits that you guys did or missions?
From the indige?
Well, in general, it's like, yeah, we did it. We got these guys, indige did great. Afghans did their job. Like, was there anything that kind of stood out? Like, oh yeah, these guys, this is what we're here for.
Well, it was actually a really slow deployment, man. We didn't do a whole lot of kinetic stuff. Like, we went on a lot of missions, but nobody fought most of the time. But I did get to do a lot of really cool stuff. One of the missions that stood out to me, and one of my SEAL buddies who I still stay in touch with today, he actually talked about this in the combat story. It was his first gunfight ever, and he was with me on that. And but we went in, we walked in, like I think it was like 10 kilometers, 10 or 15 kilometers walking in to the target after we had parked our trucks and walked in. I had food poisoning that whole week, so I didn't really feel like going on a mission. It was like I felt like death. And I remember we went and planned the mission, came back, and I talked to the team leader, Jeff, who was a SEAL Team 6 dude. And I was like, bro, I don't feel good, man. Like, I would never back off of a mission. I consider myself a war whore, you know what I mean? Yeah. A deployment whore. Like, if there's a gunfight, this dude's going to be there if at all possible. And I'm going to finagle my way on that mission, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's just the way we were, dude. Yeah. Like, they trained us to kill and to enjoy killing, you know what I mean? So I was like trying to go, but this one, dude, I've never felt that way. I was like, I don't feel like going on this mission. And he was like, dude, I need you, man. I need you on this mission. This is going to be a big one. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because we had all kinds of assets going. Like 150 probably dudes went on this mission. So we had a company's worth, or probably probably a couple platoons worth of indige from the agency. And then we had CanSoft, which was the Canadian soft guys.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah. So they had their version of Rangers there and their version of Delta Force there. And so they were going out with us, and then we were coordinating the whole thing. So there was lots of moving pieces to go after a projected 80-man fighter camp, right? And we had been after 80 to 100-man fighter camps night after night and nothing, right? So it's one of those things like, is this going to be a real target? You know what I mean? I don't know if I feel like going. He's like, yeah, you need to go. Long story short, we get there, and as we're walking in, I'm just still not feeling the greatest. And then once we get to the target, I remember looking into this, like we walk down this road and then it opens up into a field. And there's a levee, because there's a river and there's a levee on the river, like a big berm, like a shooting range berm that builds up on the side of the water to keep it from flooding on this side. And there's two dudes walking across that levee, like big mullah beards down to here, long hair like mine, with their little pakals on, big long beards, carrying briefcases. And like, it's crazy. It's like the switch flipped, the sickness I had, gone, like killing machine, switch flipped on, you know what I mean? I didn't feel bad at all anymore. I was like, this is a legit target. Like, it just, that one thing that I saw was like, this is going to be a legit target. I just knew it at that moment. So I ratcheted everything up. We pushed up, started setting in the indage. And again, I did something that you're not supposed to do because I was complacent, because we hadn't been in a gunfight the entire deployment. And this is like 3 months into it. And so I'm going up there. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go get eyes on the objective real quick. So I told the team leader, I was like, I'm going to get eyes on the objective. I'm going to sneak up there by myself, get eyes on so I know where we need to stage. He's like, all right, cool, while they're setting in the indage. So he's talking to the agency guys. They're setting their indage in. They're moving the Canadians, and I sneak up there. And as I'm sneaking up to the target, I'm on this levee, which is a trail that goes to the target. And as you get closer to the target, there's trees growing over top. And then to the left side of the levee, there's a mud brick wall on it. And then down on the other side, it drops down off the levee into a compound. So I'm elevated above the compound and like about a 4-foot mud wall to my left. And there's grape huts where they're drying grapes. And then I start getting to where there's actual buildings and houses. And as we're walking, these Canadian guys, the Canadian snipers, ended up getting in front of me, and they're kind of creeping up. And all of a sudden, one of them starts yelling in Pashto. And I knew a little bit of Pashto, but I didn't know it fluently by any means. But essentially, he was telling this dude to put his weapon down. And like, that's not what we would do. I'd have just smoked the guy, right? But their ROE was all a lot different, bro. It was very strict. They couldn't shoot anything unless they were shot at first. And so these dudes are yelling, well, there's a tree limb down. And you know how it is at night vision, you're shining with your laser, it just reflects off of the tree limb. So I couldn't see anything. I'm trying to see what's going on. So I move the tree limb out of the way. And as soon as it gets out of the way and I come under the tree limb, these dudes are both on either side of the trail. So I got a clear open shot at this dude. And he's sitting straight there with an AK. And I'm carrying an MP7, which is interesting. I got one on the back of this shirt because everybody likes the whole MP7. But I've got an MP7 and I just lit this dude up. I just put it on his chest, just started ripping that trigger as fast as I could, because that thing's no kick at all, and just dumped into his chest. And as I'm shooting him, he just piles up on himself. Like, he literally fell into a squatted position, piled up in a bush. But when he did, he squeezed his trigger and a few rounds shot off into the ground. So it kicked up dirt towards us. The bullets started ricocheting past us, and then the Canadian snipers were gone. I never saw them after that. I don't know whether they dove off or they went back to the main element or what. Never saw them again after that. But then I look over the compound and there's dudes in there, lots of dudes, and they're awake now because I just shot this dude and he fired off his AK. So I look over the wall and there's a dude crawling. And you know, in boot camp, when you stack your rifles in like the little pyramid, bro, they had their weapons stacked and everything.
No shit.
And I look over, this dude's crawling to his stack of weapons. And I'm just like, tick, 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 popped him in the back of the head, dead. Another dude comes out. At this point, now the team leader, the SEAL Team 6 dude, and all the SEAL Team 6 dudes are right there with me. And the agency dudes, everybody's right there. Like, I've already kicked off the mission.
Yeah.
I kicked off the raid by myself on accident. You know what I mean? So then, like I said, complacency will get you in trouble. So I'm shooting these dudes, and then the SEAL Team 6 dudes get there. Thank God, because now I got to do a mag change. So I drop to a knee, do a mag change, come back up. A dude comes out of the building with a PKM, and he starts spraying at us, and I shot that dude in the head. Actually, this was right before they got up. Shot that dude in the head. He falls back onto a lantern, and it busts like a kerosene lantern. It falls and busts and catches the house on fire. And the house is filled with Chinese explosives. So Chinese C4 is burning inside this house now. And that dude fell back on it. So then the SEAL Team 6 dudes are there. We're spraying, we're dropping, they're throwing grenades. I'm shooting dudes, they're shooting dudes. Then all of a sudden we get machine gun fire, and then the call is made to break contact. So we peeled, like the Navy SEAL peel. One dude peels out. We peeled all the way back out to where we were, and then came in with an AC-130, dropped some 120 rounds or 105s, whatever it is, dropped those down, did some runs with the A-10s, some strafing runs with the A-10s, dropped some bombs, and then we went back into the target. So after that, we moved back into the target, clear dead bodies, clearing the rooms. And then there's like sporadic gunfights going on over here. There's Indig in a fight, and there's machine guns firing. So me and the SEAL Team 6 guy, the team leader, he's like, hey, dude, let's go get in this gunfight. You know how it is. Like, we want to go to the sound of the gunfire,
exactly.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, bro, let's go over there and see if we can get in this fight. And like, we go, because we're the leadership. So we kind of have free range to maneuver, right? Everybody else has a mission, but us is just to coordinate it, right? So me and him move over, and this was like a divine thing, man. Like we should have been dead, man. But we took a knee on the trail, and he's probably as far as from me to you, from me. I'm kneeling facing this way. He's kneeling. We're not down behind cover. We're just kneeling. We have body armor on. All of a sudden, this machine gun opens up again, a burst. Brrr, and then all of a sudden, I could feel the snap of the round on my shoulder, on my left shoulder. I'm like, God, dog, that's close to us. And then I didn't know how close until I got back, and I talked to him. I was like, bro, when that machine gun burst went off, dude, I could feel the rounds go by. The snap, I could feel it on my arm. My left arm. And he's like, dude, I could feel it on my right arm. That means, dude, that burst went between the two of us and didn't hit either one of us. But long story short, we were on that target from the time I got into contact with those dudes until the time we pulled off was probably 45 minutes, and we killed all them dudes. That's awesome. We wiped those dudes from planet Earth and took 0 casualties.
Yeah, so that was a successful mission. So
yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah. It's almost the action movie Indiana Jones. Shoot the guy, falls back onto a lantern.
It was the perfect mission, dude. Yeah, it literally was a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Worthy.
Like movie, yeah, exactly.
And nobody got hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On our side, anyway.
Everybody had a good time.
We had a good time.
We all had a good time.
Yeah, that's a booster. That's one of those ones that'll make you feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on, and we were completely unscathed. And then there was a lot of other things on that trip, not enough to really get into, but I got to do some cool things, running around with the agency dudes, just me and one dude doing some clandestine stuff, and almost gotten some really sketchy situations where I'm with a laser on a dude from me to you in the middle of the night, and he has no clue I'm there until I put the laser on. Like, we were doing low vis stuff, and honestly, the Afghan police and the Afghan National Army guys were the guys we were dealing with, because we would be sneaking around bad guy targets that were protected by the ANA and the AMP. So when we'd roll up, they'd gun up on us, and we'd have to like man up on them.
Yeah, you almost have to like deconflict, and it's that weird.
Well, they were bad.
Yeah,
they were bad.
They're bad. So you're like, because we ran into that. I mean, we were much lower level, but you run into that where it's like, company commanders running guns, but what do we? We're still doing our mission. We weren't high enough on the chain to be like, hey, we gotta get this guy out or what. It's just like that's who we're stuck with.
Yeah.
But so you ended up doing that deployment. You come back for a second one. You're a team leader. How does that change? And is there anything that stands out to you on that one, on that second Omega trip?
Yeah, the next one, my team was mainly Rangers assigned to me, but I had one SEAL assigned to my team as well, and it was kind of slow too. Honestly, the Omega deployments were kind of slow, at least for me. Like, we did a lot of missions, but they weren't very fruitful. Like, we'd go out and go after the bad guys, and nobody would fight. So we would catch them, take them back, detain them, hand them off to NDS, and then they would be released again a little bit later on, and we'd go again. So because I was the team leader, I had control on what missions we went on. So one of the big things I had was I didn't like IEDs, man. Like, to me, that's the most cowardly way to fight. I can't fight you face to face. I'm just going to blow you up when you're driving down the road. So, and that was my biggest fear, was being blown up in an IED. I'm like, I don't want to, I want to have a chance to fight the enemy. So I told my intel guy to find me targets that would fight back. And that's kind of hard to do. But I was like, hey, if you think they're going to fight back, if you think there's a chance they have weapons and stuff like that, that's the target I want. Yeah. If it's a dude who's not going to fight, I don't want to go after him, because I'm risking all of my dudes to drive across IED-laden roads to get blown up just for a dude that's not even going to fight, and we're going to release him in 3 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was my thing. So it was a little bit slower. And then the agency got stood down on that trip because of something. I can't remember what it was. But they were stood down. They weren't allowed to do missions. So there I was, dead in the water. But Ranger Regiment surged a platoon up there, and they started taking over the agency missions and started smacking them. So I was rolling with them every night.
Yeah.
So
it got excited a little more. Yeah.
Kind of like the SEAL Team 6 dudes did when the Rangers were down smacking targets down south. When it was slow on the agency side, they would go out with the Rangers and just getting gunfights like crazy. And I was doing the same thing. They came down, we were going out smoking dudes.
Dude, I mean, like I said, the opportunities you have, it sounds amazing. Especially it's like, running with MP7s, running with all this stuff, like equipment, intel. I mean, that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
were you feeling like, man, this is my groove. This is where I belong, type of stuff. Like just
Yeah, dude. That was my thing, dude.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, I'm gonna go work for the agency and I'm gonna be a ground branch guy when I get out. That's that I made that point then. Because I found out how much money those dudes are making too. I'm like, what? I'm like, you guys make that kind of money and you get to kill bad guys?
Yeah.
Like, bro, like, let me do that. So I was actually going to get out about midway through my career and go to ground branch. But some of my buddies who were there advised me against it. They were like, no, dude, go get your retirement, retire, and then come to ground branch. And so that was my plan. But then when I did the second Omega trip, at heartburn for some reason, the second Omega trip where I was the team leader, dude, the guys that I replaced was RRD, which became RRC. It was the Regimental Reconnaissance Detachment, and now it was the Regimental Reconnaissance Company. So I met those dudes. I'm like, this is what you guys do? And they're like, this is lame. We got better stuff to do. We're bailing out of this. Here you go. So they had relinquished the Omega mission because they thought it was lame. I'm like, this is lame to you guys? Like, what do you guys do? And they were like, go to selection, you'll find out. I'm like, sweet. And so I talked to the team leader, really good dude, a guy named Hank Haynes. And he goes, man, go to selection. And he's like, you make it, we'll take you on team 3. And I was like, sweet. So I PT'd hard. I think I had a hurt back or something like that I was dealing with. My back was jacked up. And I was trying to heal that. So I started running and getting in really good shape again, just tuning myself back up. And then I put in a packet for selection. And that was 2007 when I was there in the summertime. I was at the Omega. And then in 2008, I went to selection for RRC.
And what's that I like people who listen or anybody that's interested in that. What is that process for, like I said, put your packet in? Because, I've talked with Delta, TFO. It's like, yep, you put in a 40-page packet. You get your selection date. Typically, it's kind of known now Delta runs it twice a year. Green Berets run it like every month or something like that. And so what is that process that you work to? One, it's like a miracle you even like heard about these guys.
Yeah.
Let alone, train up, getting the official paperwork. How would someone go about that? Just kind of like in broad terms, like, oh yeah, I'm a Ranger candidate. I want to try out for RRC.
Yeah, mind you, RRC is on Fort Benning on the same compound that 3rd Ranger Battalion was on. They've been there the whole time, and I saw you had no clue who they were. Like, nobody speaks of them. It's super, super, super secretive, man. Like, even in Ranger Regiment, back then, nobody knew who they were. Like, you'd see dudes with, no joke, hair as long as mine, active duty. Like, you're growing your hair for 5 years. How does that even happen? Like, beards down to here, hair this long or close to this length. And I'm like, who are these dudes? And they're just physically fit. Like, Rangers are physically fit, but these dudes, they were like shredded, man. Like fit, like super fit dudes, and super lean and all. And I'm like, who are these guys? Who are they? Nobody knows. Nobody would tell me. And then I go, my first exposure kind of vaguely to them was in PLDC, which is like an E5 course that you go through as a team leader. And I worked with a buddy of mine, or I made friends with a guy that was in PLDC with me. And he was a medic in RRD at the time. And I was like, oh, interesting. So that's when I knew who those guys were, but I didn't know anything about what they did. So then a couple years later, here I am at Omega 40 as the team leader. And I'm swapping out with Team 3 from RRD at the time. And I'm like, this is what you guys do. It's the coolest thing I've ever done in my military career. And they're calling it lame. I'm like, dude, I want to see what you guys are doing. So yeah, after that, I went to selection where I put in the packet. So for us, I think I went and had to email the guys. They emailed me a packet. The packet for RRC is really pretty simple. It was just like name, stuff like that, when you want to attend, and they probably ask you a bunch of questions and stuff like that. Submit it in, and then I got accepted. And then I got accepted to the spring selection because they do it the same. It's just like Delta Force, to be honest with you. It's very similar because they took Delta Force's program and made it like that program. I think a former Delta operator came back to the regiment and ended up being, I think, the commander of RRC, and he changed the selection to make it like theirs. And so 2 times a year, spring and fall, because honestly, the selection, it's so brutal. You need ideal weather conditions, right? Spring and fall, not too hot, not too cold, because it's just brutal. So they do it in the spring and the fall. And I went to spring selection, and yeah, man, you just show up there. It's super vague. You don't know anything. It's just a time you show up. The cadre are all exceptionally professional. I mean, they're wearing civilian clothes and suits and ties. They pick you up, and they don't have a paper in their hand, but they have memorized scripts in their head. So they only speak a line to you like robots, man. They'll like, hey, welcome to RRC selection, blah, 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 blah. Please enter the vehicle and blah, blah, blah. And then they say this stuff and you're riding all the way up to the mountains in a van, quiet as heck. Nobody's talking. There's no music on. Everybody's silent. Yeah. The cadre's not saying anything. And then you get there up to the mountains and they rent this compound up there in the mountains with like barracks and classrooms and stuff like that. A beautiful place. I won't say where it's at, but they rent that place and you show up and then you're going through all kinds of psychological screenings. They have the regimental psych there on site the whole time. He's screening you, doing aptitude tests, IQ test, personality tests. And then on top of that, you're doing all the basic requirements, PT tests, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run, 5-mile run, 12-mile standard ruck march, all these different things. But you're competing against everybody that's there. And you've got to at least make the Ranger standard, but that's not good enough because you're trying out for this elite unit and only the best get selected. So you need to be smoking that PT test. And so I think we had probably 20 something guys in my selection at the time. And we went through all that stuff, and then you go into the actual selection piece of it. Like after all the admin stuff's done, and then you go into the selection piece, which is just walking with a rucksack on in the mountains all day, every day for like miles. You know what I mean? Like 18 to 20 some odd miles a day in the roughest mountains in the Appalachians. You know, they're right there on North Carolina and Georgia are the roughest parts of the Appalachians. So, and from the guys that have been to both selections, to RRC and Delta Force selection, the only difference that I've seen is that guys that say that the mountains are a little rougher and the distances are a little further in RRC selection on average. Because every single day you're going to walk at least 12 miles, if not like 18. And if you're jacked up and you get lost a little bit, maybe 20 something miles.
Yeah.
But there's a timeline. And every day you have a certain number of points that you have to find. And you plot them on the map and then they launch you and you're going to one point and then the next one, and by the end of the day. So you're essentially getting a couple of points. I don't want to say how many, but only a couple of points in an entire day. And you're walking all day. And then at the end, they put you up in a campsite by the river so you can soak your feet in the freezing cold river water and get the swelling down from all the walking, eat some MREs, go to sleep, wake up, do it again and again and again. And every day, I'll take that back. They took us back to the barracks, except for the last night they put us by a creek. But every day when you go back to the barracks, there's just less dudes. You never see them. Like they go out and they never come back. And then there's less dudes, and then there's less dudes. And so it ended up to where by the end of it, there was only 8 of us that physically finished it. And then out of the 8 of us that physically finished, only 4 got selected after the board. And these dudes physically beast moded this thing, but they just still didn't get selected. So 4 of us got selected, and then they rolled the 4 of us with like another 5 dudes from the fall course, so a total of 9 into the OTC pipeline. And that was almost I think when I went through, it was like 7 months long. I think it's like a year long now. But by the time the OTC was done with, we had whittled that 9 back down to like 4 or 5.
And I imagine that those numbers make sense because I shouldn't say just, but it's just a company. It's not squadrons.
It's just a company.
It's not, I mean, obviously Delta does this, they whittle down too, but like they have squadrons. There's multiple companies, or even dev group or whatever, but like this is one company.
One really small company.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a company of like, if you look at total about 60 dudes, and that includes the officers and the support and the supply guy and the parachute riggers and intel guys and guys that do other different things that we have specialties there. But very small group of dudes. And like the building is cool, man. There's like, you have every asset you could ever need, clandestine stuff and all that stuff right there that you can access, man.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to think about because this is like lives in our fantasy, in the Marine Corps. What if there's a company that got everything we wanted,
Yeah.
But it is amazing to hear that, especially being under tier 1 in JSOC. Like it's not just, because sometimes units are at the mercy of commanders, like the brigade commander. Oh, this guy was amazing. The next one comes in. I hate this whole program. We're killing it. Like it's up to however that guy feels.
We dealt with that a little bit too in RRC, to be honest with you, because we were part of the Ranger Regiment, a unit that doesn't understand what we do. Delta Force understands what we do. So like overseas, certain missions, I couldn't get approval if I was working for Ranger Regiment. But if I was working for Delta Force, oh yeah, they got approved. They're like, oh, we understand. In your training, you're capable. Whereas like I would talk to some Ranger officers. I'm like, hey, I want to go up by myself, low vis, nobody else, no interpreter or anything, drive around through town, do some different things like that. And they're like, are you smoking crack? I'm like, bro, I do this all the time. but to them it was so foreign that it was a struggle. And then even though we were under JSOC and working for those guys, like the entire Ranger Regiment does as well, our officers and our commanders didn't always understand what we did. And especially like the sergeant majors, like the enlisted guys, they would come and they're like hut, shaved face, clean shaved face, spit shine boots, short haircut. And they come over there and they're like, you guys, why do you have beards? You guys look like trash. They used to call us the commander's homeless team, the team of homeless men, because we had long hair and beards. They're like, you guys look homeless. And we're like, get out of here, man. But they didn't understand it. And some of these guys would come in and the first thing they would do is just a power play, cut your hair, shave your beards, put on a uniform. And then eventually somebody would be like, hey, these guys don't operate that way. And they would shut him up. But we would have to deal with that.
So there's always that little bit of, you weren't completely separated like, say, Delta. Like, because Delta's...
Well, actually, when I found out about it, I talked to the guys, we had it better than them. Like, we still got messed with a little bit, but not even as much as those guys. I mean, they're bigger. A lot more of the eyes are on them. So that's the cool thing about us being small. Guys forget about us a lot of times. So we did, like, there was a time in JSOC, I think it was around probably, 2008-9 timeframe, where JSOC commander was like, all dudes not doing clandestine stuff will be clean shaven. All operators, everybody, SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, everybody, clean shaven, fresh haircuts, in a uniform every day for several rotations. The only guys that didn't have to was us.
Really?
Because we were the only ones actually doing clandestine stuff at the time.
Wow. So even at that level,
you
can never escape it sometimes.
No, you can't. and that's the thing. And I'm not saying we weren't the only ones doing clandestine stuff, but the bulk of these units weren't. They had dudes doing the same stuff we did, like the Black Squadron, G Squadron, stuff like that. Those dudes still had beards and hair, but the bulk of those units didn't. They had to. I mean, think about it. You don't need a beard to kick in a door and kill a dude point blank. Rangers do it all the time, clean shaven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there were guys kind of, I guess, abusing the standards, and so the commander just got rid of it for a while.
It's always, I mean, it was always a status. If you could break the mold or the regulation, it was like you were a higher status. And we did the same thing, like scout snipers. We had Mitch helmets. Not that big a deal, but it's like, oh, those guys had Mitch helmets. Oh, they get to paint their rifles. Oh,
we called it POB. Have you ever heard of that?
No, it's a
power of the beard.
Oh,
like, dude, like you just roll, roll the plate. Like, and we experienced that all the time. We would roll up to places and people wouldn't question us because they're like, these guys have beards. They must be super special. You know what I mean? But sometimes guys didn't care. They're like, oh, you got beards. We're going to scrutinize you even harder. Yeah. But the power of the beard definitely works at times.
Yeah, it 100% did. Because when I was a combat advisor, we wore BDUs. I painted the rifles and we grew out our beards. Yeah. So we rolled to places like that. People they legit thought we were Delta. Like,
yeah, they think you are.
Oh shit! Like ETT, like One Tech 11's got Delta guys attached. It was just me. And I was just, oh, hey, what are you going to do? So it was just, so it was kind of funny. And some of the Norwegian SF that we worked with too thought we were either Delta or they were like, oh, you're Afghan special forces. It's like, no, just me, man. What's going on? Or the SF. And they were like, no, man, we're just Marines. We get to let loose a little bit. So we're taking advantage of it. But that is true, though. The power of the beard, they're like, oh, that guy's doing something. I see it too. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. But so you were doing so you get there, you go to OTC. What kind of stuff, what you can talk about, what is because as a scout sniper, I know the a little bit of the field craft or whatever. What you guys are doing that kind of separates you from the rest? Like how, I know you guys are going a lot of miles. Like what's that like? And then, what are you implementing from field craft? That's like that really you guys are mastering the basics or mastering those skills. Like what were you guys kind of, since they taught, like say within, what you can talk about?
Yeah, same thing, just mastering the basics. We really did that when it comes to reconnaissance and like every aspect. Think about it. Anything you could ever think of actually can apply to reconnaissance or surveillance and things like that. So, or gathering intelligence, like learning how to track people, learning how to analyze footprints on the ground. Like that's handy intel, right? So we got to go to tracking schools, learn how to track people on their foot traffic and track blood trails and stuff like that. We got to do lots of shooting courses, long range shooting. They would bring in dudes from the Army Marksmanship Unit, which is right down the road from the from 3rd Ranger Battalion there at Fort Benning, Georgia. A lot of Rangers go there for a break and become competition shooters for the Army. And then they teach high level. They're really good shooters. That's all they do is shoot. And so we would get some of the former Rangers that were at AMU to come teach us shooting. And so we would do long range shooting with them, pistol shooting and stuff. They would hire civilians to come out and teach us it. But then there's all the clandestine stuff too, which I won't get into, we can't talk about that stuff, but, because they're super finicky about it, but all these different things, learning how to operate as an individual in an area, not as a soldier, if that makes sense.
Like, because you're the way you walk, the way you talk, the way people can
demeanor.
Demeanor. Yeah. Like I was talking with Joe England, who's TFO, and he was talking about the aliases, and he's like trying to psychologically change, like you're not wearing a grunt style shirt going into Pakistan. Like you have to be wearing whatever, and because that's the first thing that's going to give you away. It's like your shoes.
And the same thing, dude, I see it all the time still this day, bro. Yeah. I fly on planes and I see SF ODA come on. Clearly, they're SF ODA, dude, because they got special forces tattoos and they're all wearing, grunt style shirts and Solomon shoes and tactical Garmin watches. I'm like, you guys stick out like a regular Army soldier in a uniform. You know what I mean? We didn't do that. Like, you would be crushed in RRC for wearing, like you can't wear that watch. Take that thing off. You know what I mean? Like, hey, why do you have that bracelet on? You're standing out like they analyze that stuff. We had classes on how to dress professionally, how to dress as a civilian, because we were going to meetings with the CIA and with people like up high levels, diplomats and stuff like that at times. And so we needed to know like what business casual is, you know what I mean? And different things like that. So we had etiquette classes on how to dress and how to professionally speak. I mean, and they're looking for that stuff in selection too, but they wanted us to be able to present ourselves wherever we were in a professional manner and not look military. Yeah. But we can be military if we want. So that's the thing. And the not wearing the uniform thing really helps with that, man. Because when you're in the uniform, you're just military, But when you're living as a civilian, it helps take that demeanor away. And it takes time. And we did training on that stuff where we would do surveillance trips and stuff. And they would hire role players. And these dudes would analyze it. And they'd be like, you're walking like you have a purpose. You need to slow it down, hunch your back a little bit. You know what I mean? You look too fit. Put on some long sleeves to cover up your veins. You know what I mean? Yeah. Different things like that they would help us with to help us be more civilian-like.
Did you, again, you could say whether or not you did or not, but was there any outfit that you were like, this is ridiculous, but it worked really well? Like some like a hula shirt and like flip-flops, or, is there something that was like you wore or anybody that you knew was like, oh shit, man, that's really good?
I was at Howard University. That's the one in DC, the all black college in DC, right? And we had to go in the library and put eyes on a target that was in there. And I was the trigger to see when the target came out, right? So that's like the guy that's out there. So I had to blend in. There's all the snow on the ground. So I had on Carhartts. I didn't have hair this long at the time. So I had on a wig with my hair down to here. I had a beard, and then Carhartts with a Carhartt jacket and a big snow shovel. Oh. And I was out there just shoveling snow, just looking like a guy, I just rolled up on the campus like I owned the place, like I'm employed to work there. I went, I had on like a bright orange vest, but I'm out there just shoveling snow and just watching, and it worked like a champ. Students would come up to me, thank you so much for shoveling the snow. I'm like, oh yeah, no worries. That's what I'm here for. I'm a volunteer. You know what I mean? Dude, it works so good. I've been a bum before, pushing a shopping cart with a bunch of trash in it before. I'm just cruising down the streets watching people. So yeah, I mean, dude, we did all kinds. We did disguise changes all the time. Yeah. Dude, we'd be driving, and I'd have another guy from the team roll up and pick me up at a park, and I'm dressed a certain way, and I dive in the back of the car, strip down, change into something else, and he drops me somewhere else. I'm a totally different dude, following the same guy.
That's pretty cool. Because we think of, in the conventional sense, reconnaissance surveillance, it's like, we sneak in with a ruck, which you guys, I imagine, still do. Yeah. But you're thinking, I got my MSIDs on me, and I got my long range, my LRF and my sniper scopes, and like that's what people think as surveillance and reconnaissance, and it's like, no, once you get into this type of stuff, that it's the opposite. You guys it's your eyes, it's your very low vis, you're
in the deep stuff.
In the deep stuff, yeah. And then having to turn it on, if you gotta flip that switch, that's really cool to hear. But like I said, I come from the conventional side, so it's like, what kind of rucks do you have? What kind of gear?
We train for that too.
Yeah. And what was that like too? What was the stuff that you guys were getting, or are you still just mastering the basics of like, hey, reporting, this is what's going on, make sure you don't get seen on the ridgeline, stuff like that?
Same thing, mastering the basics, but we also had advanced technology or equipment. So we were constantly trying out new stuff. Like one of the cool things I remember, doing reconnaissance, your rucksack gets really heavy, right?
That sucks.
So how can we eliminate weight, right? Can't cut out food, you need it. Can't cut out water, you need that. That all has water and it's heavy. Batteries. Batteries is one of the biggest things that adds weight too. Like, dude, we're rocking a radio. It takes 2 of these big 5590 batteries. I mean, you know how big they're, like that freaking big. We have 2 of those that'll run that radio for about 6 to 12 hours, right? Then you got to chuck them and put 2 more in there. And you got to carry these. You got to last for 5 days running this radio darn near continuously or in comms windows. So we had these things. It was called a butane fuel cell. Way back then, it was crazy cool. It hooked up like the battery, and it had a little round tube that you put in there, and you turn it on. It has a little fan that, like, you could barely hear it in like a quiet room, but it burned butane and then powered the radio, and it would last way longer and was super light.
Really, that's pretty cool.
So we had that. And another thing that set us apart is that our bare minimum standard was that we could jump in military free fall, high altitude, high opening, high altitude, low opening, whatever infiltration method we needed. Infiltrate, technically high altitude is what we did a lot, opened up high and fly our canopies across like miles and miles and miles and miles downwind, land, and then continue moving. But our thing was to be able to infiltrate by military free fall and then on foot cover 40 miles in basically like 2 to 3 days to do a reconnaissance target in the roughest mountains that they could find to put us in.
That's awesome. And so, in the way you guys did, I mean, like, what like on a good average day? Because people think about that 45-pound guy, like, you know, they're in their training or doing whatever. Like, I could cover 12 miles in 3 hours or whatever, But you guys have 100 pounds in austere terrain. What was your average? Like, do you guys start at I shouldn't say start, but like, how did you manage that schedule with like sleep, movement, kind of like, and timing out wise? Because you still need to rest. You can't go 3 days straight, no sleep.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sure it's minimal. You can. But you can, but you know what I mean?
Not ideal.
Yeah.
We average, like, we could cover 40 miles in mountainous terrain in typically 2.5 periods of darkness. Like 2 to 2.5 periods of darkness.
And you're moving at night.
Yeah, we only move at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're training in the desert, bro. Like, this was during the war, right? So we were training for that war.
Yeah.
So, like, the scenery behind you right there in that picture, mountains like Afghanistan, we were training in Arizona or California or places like that. And so we would jump in and we'd walk all during the night, and then we'd hide underneath the brush in the shade and just lay low, sleep, take turns pulling security, drink water, hydrate, eat during the day. And then when the sun goes down, we throw the night vision on and keep moving. And we would walk. Yeah, the last time I did one, it took us 2.5 nights of walking to cover 40 miles.
And they build that into the mission set then. So like when you're like, hey,
we plan it.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
We plan everything.
Yeah. You plan everything like that. And then how typically are you on target? Like what was your average? Like, so because you spend that amount of time to get there, were you then covering the target for 2-3 days, a week, or
2-3 days up to 5 days? Okay. We were supposed to be able to last up to 5 days. Most of the time it was 2 or 3 days. We'd be watching the target until, and the thing is, the tactical recce stuff like that, I never did that in combat. It's like the one thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I never did that in combat. So all the tactical recce stuff that I did was all training. It was fun. It was arduous. It was tough. It made us fit. But it was all training. So all the stuff like sneaking around, surveillance detection, blending in like an Afghan, that's what we did. Like that's what I got to do a lot of.
And so when you guys said you did get the country, then was there guys that did do that, or is it just kind of fell that way that you guys just didn't really do that?
There were guys that did it more in the beginning of the war, but then by the time I got there, it was more of the low vis clandestine type stuff. I mean, we were still going out and raiding targets every night too, like on top of doing the low vis stuff during the day. So for example, an average day for me in Afghanistan when I was in RRC would be wake up probably like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm like texting my dudes or having my interpreter text my dudes, check in with them, make sure they're good. My Afghan indige, I had clandestine operatives all out there working for me, but I would be on a military base, typically with Rangers or Delta Force. And my last one, for example, was a Ranger platoon and a Delta Force troop on the base. Those were the assaulters, and they would alternate. Delta would go one night, Rangers the next night. Or sometimes they had big targets, they'd both go and hit them simultaneously. But during the day, I was running my indige, checking in with them, driving intel, tasking them with missions to go do reconnaissance, surveillance and stuff on buildings and take pictures and send them back to me. And then a lot of times I would have to meet up with them to debrief them. So for that, I would have to plan everything out, and then I would hop in my vehicle dressed up like an Afghan, and I'd roll out a hidden gate that we had that nobody really watched, so I could drop out and then drop down into the valley, and nobody knew that I came off of a military base. Yeah. So then I would drive out in the city, pick my dudes up, talk to them for a little bit, debrief them, all by myself. Mind you, Delta Force and Rangers are asleep right now. They're sleeping because they've been on missions all night. But I'm awake, and there's only like a shadow element in the jock that's monitoring what I'm doing. And I'm coordinating with them over cell phone, like the old Nokia phones. Yeah. I'm just texting, literally texting, time, location, boom. Yeah. Like that's the way we ran it back then. We didn't have the technology we have now. So I would just text a grid coordinate and then a time so they could track where I was at. Because that had I wasn't talking on a radio to people. I can't have that radio in my car. It makes me military. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm a civilian. You know, I can't have big weapons and stuff. So I was carrying a concealed pistol with a bigger gun stashed, hidden somewhere in the car. But I would go out and do that, come back, maybe get some breakfast or whatever, or some lunch, maybe hit the gym, and then take a little afternoon nap. And then because at like probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, the Rangers or the Delta Force dudes would be knocking on the door. Hey, mission, you want to roll? I'm like, yep, I'll roll out. And so I'd go out with them at night and help out where I could. So I wasn't part of their team, but I could interrogate and actually... I could speak Dari good enough because I had to learn it to deal with my indige and to go out low vis. So my interpreter taught me Dari, and I knew Dari good enough that I could interrogate dudes in Dari without an interpreter. So that's one of the things that I would do. I'd go out on target at night, help with like sniper overwatch, or I'd be the interrogator to free up one of their guys. And then I would figure out who the targets are, who the guys we want to take back are or not, and then go back. That was a typical day for me.
That's awesome. So, like I said, learning that type of language. I mean, like I said, you were thinking about doing the, working ground branch. Were you working with CIA assets at that point, or it was just mostly JSOC? I mean, like that's a
little bit
skill,
of both. There's some programs that we did for the agency. I don't want to talk about those. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I don't know that I can't honestly, but I just prefer not to. But we did some stuff, for example, and I'll just keep it vague, but we mapped all the internet cafes in Afghanistan. So think about this. This is the people that are watching can't fathom this. But think about 20 years ago, 30 years ago here in the United States. Nobody had internet. Like you couldn't afford it. It wasn't, but there would be a cafe that you could go to, an internet cafe, and you could borrow the internet. You know what I mean? Pay a couple bucks. You get to use the internet on the computer. That's how infrequently people needed the internet. It was the same thing in Afghanistan in the 2000s. You know what I mean? Even in the 2015 era, 2012, 2015 era, there were internet cafes. And so if the Afghans needed technology or needed the internet, they go to internet cafes. So they're passing information via the internet. So can we get a hold of that? We could, and that's what we did. Yeah. So my guys in the program working with the agency that we did, we went in there and basically exploited all that stuff.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, that was, I remember our SIGINT guys back in the day were kind of, because Iraq had that too. It's like, where they'd swing by and, we're like, we didn't know what they were doing, but we knew what they were doing, kind of deal. Yeah. And back in the day, it was just funny just to bring that up. I remember on Camp Pendleton when I was a boot in the infantry school, not as cool as your story, but they had the internet cafe behind the infantry barracks. Yep. Like, oh my God, we like roll there. So I do remember the era of even in the U.S. having internet cafes. Yeah. And then it's like things pick up in the U.S. a lot quicker. And then I backpacked overseas a lot after I got out, and there's always internet cafes, but then eventually data, cell phones all caught up. So I don't even know if it's a thing anymore.
It's not. Well, I don't think it is either. Yeah. Because even in Afghanistan now, my Afghans are rocking iPhones now. Yeah. So they got internet on their phone.
Yeah. I mean, even I was there, between 2008 to 2013, but like by 13, they all had smartphones, 2013. Yeah. So that by that point, I'd imagine they were pretty locked up on that. But yeah, that's wild. So how long were you, how many deployments, how long were you in RRCs?
Not as long as I wanted to be. Because I went there late in my career. Like I was already eligible for E8 when I went to selection. So I went to selection as an E7, made it, got it to the team. The guys honored their promise. I made it. They took me to Team 3. So I was working with those guys that I swapped out with on the Omega trip. And then did that, and then eventually it opened up. They wanted me to be an assistant team leader for Team 2. So I moved to Team 2, and I was the assistant team leader, and I made E8. I declined E8 the first year I was there because I was a new guy, bro. I was like, I can't be an E8. I'm not a team sergeant. So I declined it the first year, and Then the second year I was up for it, I was like, whatever, I'll let my packet go up for E8 because I probably won't get it. You know what I mean? That's what I thought. And if I do, it's going to take 2 years for me to pin it on. So I'm going to be good because that's kind of what was the status quo.
And what years was that? And how long had you been in?
I'd only been in like 10, 12 years, 10 or no, less than. I made E8 in like 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in E8 for over half of my career.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah. And dude, so I went, it was about 2009, I think, ish, 9 or 10 time frame. I put in, I accepted the thing for my E8, my packet to go up for E8. And then because of deployments, I was so busy, I came back from one of the deployments and to get my DA photo. So I'm trying to make sure I'm close to the mic.
Oh, yeah.
To get my DA photo. Because in the Army, you have to have your pretty picture of you in your uniform, for your packet that goes up to the E8 board. Because it's Department of the Army. It's not your unit choosing you. It's the Department of the Army. Kind of like E7. So I fly back. I shave my hair off. I cut my beard off. And then I'm getting ready to go get my DA photo, and they can't get me in. They can't get me in. They can't get me in. I'm like, dang it, man. I guess I'm not going to get my DA photo. So then I start growing my beard back out because the Sergeant Major calls me. He's like, hey, dude, do you mind going right back overseas? I'd only been home for a month. He's like, do you mind going back over? We have a dude as an emergency, a family emergency. We need to bring him back home. He's only going to do 2 months of the deployment. Can you go back over and finish the last 2 months? And it's the same place I came from. So it's like, you don't need to train up. You're just working with these dudes. You go right back. And I was like, cool, I'll do it. So I start growing my beard back out, my hair back out for like a month or so. Not that long, but enough to where it's outside of the Army standards, right? Because when I cut my hair, it was just bare minimum to the standards.
Yeah.
So then my hair is like curling over my ears and stuff. And the dude calls me for the DA photo. I go in there, take it. My hair's all over my ears. I'm like, ain't no Sergeant Major gonna pick me. They're gonna be like, this dude's an abomination to the military with his long hair. So then I'm thinking I'm not gonna make E8. Boom, I made it. And like they pinned me in 10 months. Like it was like it had been taken 1.5 years, 2 years for guys to pin it once they made it. They changed the rules, I guess. I made it, and after that, dude, 10 months later, boom, pinned it. I'm an E8. So now I'm a master sergeant, and I'm only been in RRC for like 2 years, 1.5 years, 2 years. And but I'm assistant team leader on team 2, and then the Sergeant Major wanted to make me a team sergeant, but I wasn't too eager about it because I feel like I was still new. I still needed to learn stuff. You know what I mean? So I wasn't too eager, chomping at the bit to be a team sergeant. So I ended up doing another deployment, came back, and another dude ended up taking over that team, just the way that it worked out because I was overseas, and so no big deal. But then all of a sudden, the regimental Sergeant Major came down. And another E8 list had come out, and a ton of dudes in the reconnaissance company got picked. So now it's in this super small company that only has the provision for 9 E8s in the whole company. But now we had double that. And like everybody was an E8 pretty much. So like everybody, like we had 2 to 3 E8s on a team at the time. And so the regimental Sergeant Major came down and was like, hey, I need you guys to go back to the line battalion and be platoon sergeants and spread your knowledge back there. And nobody accepted. Nobody wanted to leave. You know what I mean?
Why would you? Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then it came down to like it was forced. So then I come back in from I can't remember. I was eating lunch out in town, and I get a call from the Sergeant Major, and he's like, "Hey, dude, come hit me up when you get back. We got to go talk to the Sergeant Major. They want you to leave RRC and go be a platoon sergeant." And I was like, "Dude, I don't want to do that." He's like, we'll go talk to him when we get back. So I get back, hit him up. We go to the Sergeant Major, who is my battalion Sergeant Major. Another guy has no clue what RRC does, has no clue what we do. Just this guy, and I'll call this dude out. His name is Bishop. He's a turd, man. Like I'll straight up say it, like the most unprofessional guy I've ever worked with. This guy he was like, hey, I need you to go back to 3rd Ranger Battalion. You're going to be the Mortar platoon sergeant. And I was like, Sergeant Major, I don't want to go back there. I was like, my team is short a dude. I'm a brand new assistant team leader. I've only been an assistant team leader for a little bit. I said, if you take me off the team, like we're going to be significantly lacking. And he's like, I don't see what you don't get. Nobody gives an F about RRC. And I was like, well, I do because my team's there. And I was like, I don't want to go back to the line. He's like, I don't see what you don't get. He's like, you don't have a choice in the matter. Either you go or you leave the Ranger Regiment. And I was like, are you serious right now? Like I told him this straight up. I said, all the blood, sweat, and tears that I've shed for this unit, and I go through this selection and this hard program to get to a team, and you're going to make me leave after I've only been there like 2.5, 3 years. I think it was like 3.5, 4 years by the time I left. And he was like, yeah, that's the way it is. We tell you where to go, and either you accept it or you leave. And I was like, all right, well, I'll give you an answer by the end of the week. And he was like, I want to answer now. I was like, sorry, I'll give it to you by the end of the week. And so I went and talked to my wife. And she didn't like me being in RRC anyway, because I was never, ever, ever home. So she was all for it. And I was like, man, I guess I'll do it. And then I went over there and I talked to the guys in the platoon, and I was like, man, I like these guys, man. So yeah, I did it. And I was like, Roger, Sergeant Major, I'll do it. And he's like, you can come back, just do a year, and then you come back and be a team sergeant. I was like, okay. So I left and went to 3rd Ranger Battalion and was the mortar platoon sergeant. And I'm not a mortar guy. You know, it's still infantry, but it's a different piece of infantry that a whole different school for. Yeah. And I didn't go to that. So I got there and I went to that school, not actually to the school, but the schoolhouse was right down the road. And I would go in my free time and sit down with the NCOIC, and he would teach me mortar stuff, just so I had an understanding, so I could know what my dudes are talking about at least. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like how does this work? Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And so then, and I trusted my dudes, man. I was like, you guys are the experts on mortars. I'm just the manager here. So I did that, and I tried to take advantage of it and like make these guys happy. I found out the mortar guys didn't like being mortars because they had to carry these mortar tubes that they could never really use a lot of times. You know, because they're kind of an indiscriminate weapon, and we were using more precision stuff. So they never got to use their mortars that much in combat anymore. It had shifted away from that. So they're just sitting on a blocking position while Rangers and Delta Force are kicking indoors, feeling like they're not part of the team. So what I did was I sent these guys out to get cross training. Like I sent a bunch of them to sniper school. And then the sniper platoon had all these extra sniper rifles that they didn't use, because we get the JSOC rifles, we get the SOCOM rifles, but we also get the conventional Army rifles too. So we get all the budgets. That's the cool thing about Ranger Regiment, a lot of people don't know, is Rangers get to take part in all the budgets. Yeah. They get the same money and the same funding for like weapons and equipment that Navy SEALs and Green Berets get. But then they also get the same funding from JSOC for the same type of equipment. So we have what we call white side equipment and black side equipment. But then we also get the conventional Army issue stuff too. So, and some of the conventional Army stuff, at least late in the war, was actually pretty good. So what I did was I took those rifles, gave them to my guys, and then had some of those guys employed as snipers. And so then they were going overseas, and they're like, to the platoon leader, they could say, not only can I shoot mortars, but if you don't need me with mortars, I can take a sniper rifle and I can be, you know, an assistant sniper, sniper overwatch or whatever. Yeah. So it helped those guys a little bit. And I ultimately really enjoyed it, man. It was not what I wanted to do, but I enjoyed it.
Well, psychologically, though, what's that like going, like, say, from a tier 1 unit back to mortar team or mortar platoon? You know, because that's hard for guys to be like, yeah, man, there's the reason you keep escalating up. You don't jump back to, you know, you don't jump back to a team leader in the line, you know, because Marine Corps was doing that with guys in MARSOC at one point. They're like, oh, no, you have to go back. And it's like, why would I ever? Like, I excel all the way up here, and now you want me to drop back down to be a squad leader? You know, and it's just one of those things where you just want to keep progressing. You don't want to fall back, you know?
It's the way it is.
Like, yeah, what's that? Yeah, is it just...
It was not good, man. It actually put me in a bad place mentally. Like I was good at work and handled the guys handled the guys good. But at home, I was drinking. I was kind of mad. I was pissed off because I was like, dude, I want to be back over there. I want to be doing free fall jumps with my team. Like I loved free fall stuff, and that was my big thing. I had just gotten through the instructor course, the free fall instructor course, out at Yuma, Arizona. So I'm like, dude, I'm with one of the most qualified free fall guys there, and I can't even jump anymore. So, well, I could, but I didn't get to jump with the team. So there was that, and then. Yeah, I'm wearing a uniform every day again. You know what I mean? Clean shaven, short hair, wearing a uniform every day again. And it was challenging for me, but still rewarding at the same time. But that's just the way it is, man. And I didn't realize that until I went back to the regiment like about a year ago. And there's all these Delta Force dudes at Ranger Battalion as platoon sergeants and first sergeants.
Really?
Yeah, because since the GWAT slowed down, they had too many dudes too, and they pushed them out, and they come back to Ranger Battalion. So tons of Delta Force dudes mixed in Ranger Regiment. I mean, it's kind of always been that way, but there's a lot more now.
A lot more now,
yeah.
So then do you do a year over, so you're a little over halfway into into your career. you do a year over there. So did you do any deployments with that mortar team or anything that sticks out to you significantly from there?
I did. That's the one I was telling you about earlier, where I went to Bastion and I was the RC Southwest LNO. Oh, yeah. So I was just briefing Marine Corps generals and colonels on our missions, because this was towards the end. This was like 2013, not towards the end, but towards the end of my time, 2013, 2014 time frame. And they basically, the regiment had to play nice now. So JSOC was required to brief the regular army and the conventional battle space owners on our missions before we went out. Because back in the day, we'd go on targets and no approval from anyone, wreck shop, burn houses down, kill a bunch of people, and leave the destruction for the battle space owner to handle. And these officers come like, who did this? Yeah. Who killed all these people? Who blew these buildings up? Nobody's taking credit for this. And they had no clue who to blame, right? And they didn't know what had happened because we didn't tell anybody about our missions. But at this point in time, we had to brief them about our missions. And that was my job to do it. And it was in a watered down way. We wouldn't give them details because they would leak it out. Like the Marines didn't. But some of the conventional forces would leak our mission stuff out to the Indage. So we had to be very careful what we would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those are those time frames, the drawdown or the conventional forces, things were getting really, the ROEs were getting stricter.
Yep.
It wasn't what it used to be. Like I said, we were, in the middle 2008, 9 frame, and even into 10s and all that, but it just starts declining, and it's, not as fun. But I remember hearing about Rangers, I was talking with Phil. He's a former Delta operator officer, but he was talking about I don't know if you it sounds like you were in that time frame, but there's a rescue. I think there's Rangers got good enough where he was pretty proud of it. They did a hostage rescue with like some French citizen or some citizen or like that in Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When was that?
I don't remember. I'd have to ask him specifics, but he was like, that was one of his. He just mentioned it in passing because he was in Rangers. He was like, yeah, that was kind of a cool thing because not only did Rangers stand up their own cells, you guys were having your own target practice or target packages, but like, and you guys are self-sustaining and doing a lot of what Delta was doing, these high speed stuff. But he said that there was a hostage rescue that they did like completely on their own. It was like successful, and it was like kind of like a nice. It was a cool highlight. He said that was like you're kind of proud of. I don't know if there was a gunfight involved, but it was like no, we did a raid, we rescued someone.
Yeah, I think I remember vaguely hearing about that. I can't remember when that was.
Yeah.
So exactly, I mean. That's the thing. That's a Ranger mission, hostage rescue. You know what I mean? Like typically you're going to, if anybody out there for the guys watching, if you want a hostage rescued, you need to call Delta Force. That's like the guy. That's the guys that you call. Not SEAL Team 6, not Ranger Battalion, but Delta Force, right? That's who you call. If you call SEAL Team 6, they're probably going to get killed. The hostage is probably going to get killed. Rangers just don't do it as much as Delta Force, right? They are the best. Those dudes moving to a house is just impressive.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the videos, seen how they kind of move, and I was like, oh shit, man, you guys are cruising. But
they're the best. Yeah, they're the best on planet Earth with clearing rooms and guns. And I'd say Ranger Battalion is number 2.
Is there any time that you guys knew of, or anybody that like you guys had to integrate stacks? Where it was like something went wrong, or just or not even went wrong, but this opportunity happened where guys could like integrate, or is it just like no, they stick with their own?
No, we mix with those guys a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's not planned that way because we operate on our own. But like for example, doing the Omega stuff, I was clearing rooms in stacks with SEAL Team 6 dudes and Delta Force dudes. You know what I mean? And we just hopped in and flowed normally. They do the stuff the same way we do. I mean, think about it. Where do Rangers learn their CQB? From Delta Force, bro. That's our big brother. You know what I mean?
And probably talking with a lot of those guys, it sounds like it's mastering the basics, but they do it every day in and day out. Whereas like Rangers, you do start doing other stuff, but like when guys are talking about the Delta guys, even when we're hanging out, they're like, dude, you just show up every day, go to the range, you shoot. It's like they wake up, they go straight to the range, and everyone's like shooting every single day. And I come from conventional. It's like, dude, we're lucky we touched our rifles like once a month, or something like that. But
we shot a lot too in Ranger Regiment. I mean, a lot of shooting. But we did have a lot of other things that we had to do as well. But Rangers master the basics too, but it takes a while, right? So by the time you've been in Ranger Battalion, like 3 years, you probably have a lot of the basics mastered. 3 to 4 years. By that time, you're about to be a squad leader and you've probably got most of the basics mastered. Now you're trying to master being a leader of enforcing the basics. And so it just works up from there. So that's typically about the time a dude's going to go to Delta Force or RRC is typically about the time they've made squad leader and done that a little bit because they've already mastered the basics. for the most part. And then they go to Delta Force and they just hone it in even so much more. It's so fine tuned, man. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize they want to do the cool guy operator stuff, but you can't do that if you haven't mastered the basics. And a lot of the basics can be boring. Like you're literally grabbing your hand, pulling it out, presenting it, click, and then back in. Pulling it out, presenting it, click. I mean, you may do that 1,000 times. It's kind of boring. You're not even shooting a live round. But those are the basics, the trigger manipulation, and the grip of the gun, and how to achieve the grip. Those are the things you have to master before you can shoot fast and smooth.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah, I mean, that's insane. So you do your year. You've done that deployment. What then starts happening after that? How much time you got left, or what was
So yeah, I did a period of time, a train up cycle, and then did the deployment, and then came back from the deployment, and then was going to go back to RRC. And the sergeant major of RRC at the time, he and I like butted some heads on some things. He was the sergeant major, but he's the same rank as me. He was a master sergeant, filling that position. Good dude, was an operator from a team, but just he and I had butted some heads a little bit, and I was like, the heck with that. So one of the guys that was on my old team was getting ready to retire and was kind of slacking a little bit. And I was like, why don't you fire him and let me take his spot? I'm faster, stronger, fitter. I'm working hard. He's like ready to retire. Let him retire. Let him go do something chill. But rather than getting rid of that dude, he was like, oh, you want to tell me how to run my company? And I was like, well, I don't want to be a part of your company anymore if you're going to have that attitude. So then I started looking for alternate locations. I really wanted to go back there, but I was close to the end of my career too. I only had 5 years left before I could 4 or 5 years before I could retire. So then I started looking at doing ROTC because I wanted to now give to my family. Like if I'm going to be in the military and I'm not going to do the coolest stuff, I want the chillest job so I can spend time with my family. Yeah. And so I looked for ROTC, almost did that. That didn't pan out. And then I found out that the free fall school out in Arizona would take me. And even though they only have 1 or 2 E8 positions out there, they would take me. And so I called out there, and the sergeant major was like, I'll take you if you're okay declining E9. And I was like, shoot, yeah, I don't want to be a sergeant major. I'll be an E8 until I retire. So I declined E9, went out to the free fall school. And then when I got there, it's like I show up. I've already been to the instructor course, but I haven't worked out there, right? So the instructor course is 3 months long and consists of about 150 jumps. And that's teaching you how to be a free fall instructor. But then you have to shadow the course for 3 months to actually get your certification as your I number is what they call it, your instructor number. So I showed up, and then right as I'm shadowing, they're like, hey, you're going to be the Detachment NCOIC. So I ended up being in charge right as I got there. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know how this place works. But I had more jumps than anybody. I had more tactical jumps than anybody. I had much more free fall training. Like most of the special forces, Green Berets and Navy SEALs and stuff that were out there as free fall instructors maybe had 50 jumps and were barely Jumpmaster qualified when they show up to become instructors. So then they go to the instructor course and they barely make it. At this point in time, I think I had nearly 1,000 jumps already. And I had tons of jump, being a jump master, doing all kinds of stuff. So they made me the Detachment NCOIC for one of the detachments, did that for a year. And then after that, I needed neck surgery. My neck was bothering me. It still does. And so I had neck surgery. So I got neck fusion and I couldn't jump for like 6 months. So I didn't want to be, on a jump status and not be able to jump. So I told the sergeant major, I was like, hey, he needed a new NCOIC for the Jumpmaster course, which nobody wanted to go to because it's kind of boring, and there's not a lot of jumping, at least at the time. So I was like, Sergeant Major, I'll be the NCOIC at Jumpmaster if you want me to while I'm healing up. And he's like, that sounds like a good idea. So I went over and was the Sergeant Major or the NCOIC of the Jumpmaster course. So then I was in charge of the proponency for all Jumpmaster stuff across all the branches, Navy SEALs, JSOC, everybody had to conform to the standards of the schoolhouse. And I was the guy in charge of that. Like, I can't remember what they call it, but chief instructor essentially. But so I wrote the documents for that stuff and analyzed all the doctrine. We had to rewrite the doctrine and stuff and then enforce it and then teach Jumpmaster. So I did that. And then I incorporated jumping back into Jumpmaster, more jumping than it had ever been. I had incorporated 6 jumps into the Jumpmaster course. And we did it sometimes. We didn't have the money or the assets to do it all the times, but we did it. And then after that, I went out to I went right across the street to the free fall instructor course, which is the coolest place to work at the free fall school, because now you're just doing all kinds of fun jumps, jumping out, flipping upside down, tumbling, and your students are trying to save you because you're teaching them to be an instructor. So I did that for my last probably 2 years out there.
Yeah, sounds exciting. Like it's one of my I don't say bucket list, but it's always one of those things. God, I still haven't got out skydiving yet, But I hear about you guys doing the jumps, and it just like looks awesome. Like it's so much fun.
It's a blast.
And I imagine, was that kind of like a fun way to, I don't say end your career, but like, jumping on airplanes for the last few years of your career?
It was, you know what I mean? Like when I went to the Mortar Platoon, it was one of the things, I still tagged along on some free fall jumps with headquarters occasionally, but they were just, not real jumps, But then I got to do free fall and I was doing it every day, and I was coming home to my family. I wasn't deploying. The thing is, we didn't have guns out there. We couldn't shoot. It was just jumping. So a lot of my shooting skills and all that stuff kind of dwindled away while I was out there because I wasn't doing as much, but my free fall skills got amped up. And then, after that ended up leading me to being a contractor doing free fall contract stuff. Yeah. So,
and that's something too. We were talking about the other yesterday was you can't jump at night in training.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was for the beginner course.
For static line, you can jump in night, but we didn't wear night vision back in the day. But we jumped at night all the time. And free fall, you jump at night. Like that's how you're going to jump. In real life, it's always going to be at night.
I was going to say, I was a little confused on that. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. It's always going to be at night.
Yeah.
And we train a lot of night jumps. Like typically with the way we do it is we'll do night jumps before we do the day jumps because the winds pick up and it gets squirrely around lunchtime. So we get up early and we'll usually do 2 night jumps before the sun comes up. And then we do 3 or 4 day jumps during the day. And that's for tactical training, not instructor stuff, but tactical stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so has there been any, like the way that the shoots are made and stuff like that, like were they improving in that time? Do you see any kind of jump in improvement, or you guys have been using the same stuff for a while?
They improved a good bit. So like the parachute, when I first got to RRC, we had this parachute called the MJ, which was an amazing parachute. But it had a ripcord and you had to pull the ripcord, which is kind of standard. But they ended up transitioning that to the bottom of the container, which is basically like civilian skydiving. You have this little hacky and you pitch it out. And it's safer, much safer to jump. But the Army was against it because they claimed it's dangerous. And actually a lot of the old heads out there at Yuma that I was working with, they were against it. They're like, it's dangerous. I'm like, bro, this is all I jumped, man. Like I jumped ripcord just a little bit and I've jumped HDPC out there and it's safe and it's much cleaner. But a lot of these guys were against it. But we started jumping that in JSOC, RRC, Delta Force SEAL Team 6 started jumping the MJ with HDPC. But there's all kinds of different things that changed. The night vision was getting better. We started getting we had the dual tube night vision, but then it got dual tube with white phosphorus, so it's a little bit clearer. And then we had the thermal overlay, the fusion goggles and stuff too. So, and that's really good for free fall because now I can see the heat signature of a dude's body at night. And it's hard to see a dude sometimes when there's city lights in the background at night, but that helped out. So that got better. And then when I went out to the free fall school, it was like going all the way back to the archaic days. Like the special forces guys and the SEALs and all, they're jumping parachutes that were made in the 1950s, bro. Really? Still.
Is there a reason why they still do that?
Just funding, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But when I got out to the free fall school, even up until right before I left, we were still teaching dudes to jump out of the same parachutes they were jumping out of in like probably the 60s or 70s, actually.
Yeah. That's crazy that they're still doing that. Like, because I was talking with guys like airborne school. I think they upgraded their parachute because a lot of guys get injured, with the parachutes. They just kind of suck. But they integrated like a better one or something like that recently or something like that.
They did. I like the old one. The static line one, I like the old one better, the round one. Better than that square one. It does land you smoother, but I just like the round one better. Yeah. But now the free fall parachutes, the parachutes that they had they're mediocre. The containers are mediocre, but there's really good stuff out there now. And then the Army, being the Army, they went and got this other parachute and they went cheap on the deal. And they went to the RA1, which is what they use now. And I can't stand that thing. It's supposed to have a better glide ratio. I'd say that's probably arguable. You know what I mean? I think the MJ can hang with it. The MMPS, which is the Marines use, can definitely hang with that thing, I think. And that's probably my favorite parachute. And I helped teach the MARSOC course. And they jumped the MMPS. That, to me, is the best parachute out there for a tactical rig. And then the MJ, what we jumped, is probably number 2, in my opinion.
And can you get those civilian side, or is that like they have a civilian market on that?
You can. They're expensive though. You're talking $40,000-$50,000.
Oh, really?
Parachutes,
Yeah. That's wild. So
they're huge. They weigh about 75 to 80 pounds too.
really, is it just built for the weight and stability, or like what's the?
Well, it's just the material. I mean, you're talking a 360 square foot canopy. So, I mean, and it's 3 layers thick. So it's got a top layer, it's got a bottom layer, and it's got ribs in between. So it takes a lot of space up. And I mean, you pack the whole parachute up, the whole main, it's about that big. And that goes on the bottom. Then there's another one that same size on the top that's your reserve parachute. And then you get the container all around it and the harnesses and the heavy straps to handle all that load. It's a heavy thing. Okay. So when you're doing military free fall jumps, and I've jumped 120-pound rucks before. So you got a 80-pound parachute on your head, on your back. Now you got your helmet with night vision, an O2 mask, and an oxygen bottle that weighs like 15 pounds just banging up against you. And a rifle, sniper rifle, whatever you got, all your tactical gear, body armor on, and then you got a 120-pound rucksack on. And you're literally standing on the edge of that ramp, and the metal rings that are on the things are digging into your collarbones. It's pretty uncomfortable. It's a lot of weight that a lot of people don't realize. And then you just dive out, and as soon as you hit the air, all the weight's off your shoulders. You're like, oh.
I mean, it's not the same, but we feel that way scuba diving, where it's like you kind of wild your way over to the edge. And once you get in the water, you're like, this is amazing. You know?
Yeah.
So I imagine that's what's like.
Same thing.
Yeah, when you're out there, like, especially that amount of weight. And then once you pull the chute, then I imagine it's the weight's then.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's like being pulled up, so you're not completely killing yourself.
Yeah, as soon as you get out the plane, the pain's over with, man.
That's awesome.
The weight's off you, and then, when you deploy, it's under the canopy at that point in time, and then you land, and then the ruck goes on your shoulders, and you walk 40 miles with it.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, I've never done any of this stuff, so it's super interesting to me. I mean, it's pretty cool. So how do you guys navigate then, like in like a 3D, 4D space? Now you have elevation, where you're, I was talking with Joe about this. It's like, dude, if you get off at night, like, or something you can go in another direction for miles, you know, dude. Like, so when you guys are doing that type of stuff, how do you calibrate, or how do you use your compass? You know what I mean? Like, how do you land to where you want to land that's miles away if you're gliding in?
It's a lot of math, dude.
Yeah.
It's like trigonometry and math and all kinds of long division and stuff like that. But we analyze the wind profile all the way up. Like, we get the altitude and the velocity and the direction of the wind. We average those winds, and then we calculate it through using like glide ratios and things of that nature, tie it in our wing loading, our weight, the winds and stuff like that, and we can calculate our wind drift. Okay. And it's calculated based on the canopy too. So different canopies have different glide ratios and different constants that you use to calculate. So we calculate all that stuff, and then back in the day we just used an old boat compass and a Garmin GPS. And then we would plug it in the GPS, and we would watch the GPS, but we also have to do an azimuth, because that's a beeline shot. Whereas my winds that I calculate are actually going to give me a little bit of a stagger, but it's working with the wind. Okay. So nowadays we have these things called ATAC. It's an Android phone that has a program in it specifically for all kinds of things, but mainly for free fall. So you can go into that computer now and calculate your stuff, and it plots it on a map, and it plots a cone, and you can jump out, and we have things where everybody can wear something. So even when it's pitch black dark, like back in the day, it was a lot harder than this. But now when it's pitch black dark, I could be out under canopy, pitch black dark, looking for my buddies. And if I don't see them, I can look on the ATAC and be like, there's a dude over there. Okay, I see him now. Oh, really? You know what I mean? And now they have heads-up displays that even work in the night vision. So it's like a video game. When you look around, there's an icon. It says Bob over here and John over there.
It has the AR, augmented reality, or whatever that like.
Augmented reality. That's what they call it.
Yeah, the AR platform where you look over. It's like, there he is.
Yeah. So it's way easier. Back in the day, we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
You had to physically ID these guys. So there's a lot of training that comes into that, right? When we go off the back of the ramp, we have to be close to each other, close enough, but not too close, because you don't want that dude's parachute opening right on you. But when he hits the wind, he's going to take off, and you're shortly after him. So we stagger that, and we pay attention. We maintain our headings, and when we deploy the parachute, we make sure we stay facing a certain way. And then we know once our canopy is open, we do a 90-degree right turn or left turn. This is all planned. So we'll do a 90 to get on heading, and then look to our GPS and make sure that we're on heading. Okay. And then we start looking for other dudes, because the team will start building a stack together. Okay. Everybody will line up in like a line like this. The low guy will be here, and everybody else is just stair-stepped above him. Okay. It's called a stack, a canopy stack. and we fly that way as a team all the way. And then we call, and we're talking on the radio the whole time. And then when we get to where we want to land, the low guy will set the pattern for landing, just like a plane. We hang out upwind of the drop zone. We'll burn off our altitude. As we're moving to the drop zone, we'll burn off a little altitude, but making sure we have enough to get there. And then when we get there, we burn off the last little bit and we set up a downwind leg. So we fly downwind, crosswind, and then land into the wind on the drop zone.
Okay. And like, how many jumps does that take to get like confident? You know, from like 0 to I'm jumping with Delta. Yeah, you mean, or jumping into combat, like, you know,
About 75 jumps.
75 jumps. You guys
Ideally.
just go,
Yeah.
like in school.
Well, in the
or
free fall
training?
school. So the best free fall course out there is the JSOC course. And those guys, the students that we teach out there, when I was teaching it, get about 75 jumps in about a month.
So you're just cruising.
Yeah. They'll go out there the first week, they're learning how to pack their parachutes, and they're flying in the wind tunnel. And we're teaching them the basics of body flight and stuff in the wind tunnel without a parachute on. And then we put the fake parachutes on and have them fly in the wind tunnel with a fake parachute on, because the parachute makes you fly a little different. So you have to get used to that. And then we fly them with a rucksack and a parachute in the wind tunnel for a whole week, you know, through that first week. And then after the end of that, we do one-on-one jumps. So then day one, jump one, we do everything. We teach them how to rig their ruck, how to set the cypress on their parachute, how to rig their parachute, how to properly fit it, everything about it. We walk them through everything on the ground, how to jump, and then we take them in the plane and do it. And then we basically video everything. So we critique these dudes. And then as soon as we hit to the ground, I'm going in there, put my video up, jumping my next dude. And then when I come back, I take my other student who I jumped with earlier and I bring him and I show him the video. I'm like, hey, this is what you did wrong. This is what you have to correct. Pay attention to this, pay attention to that, blah, blah, blah. Let's go do it again. And then we go and do it again and again and again and again. And that's just with a parachute. And then we throw in the rucksack, and then we throw in the nav board, and then we throw in the rifle, then we throw in the helmet, night vision, do it at night. So we just build them up. But by the end of the course, it's about 75 to 80 jumps. And these dudes are jumping as a team, stacking up, landing on an unknown blacked out drop zone at night.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. So it is the thing too, is again, another maybe a dumb question, but like if everything goes wrong, like say tech or whatever, can you do like dead reckoning and land navigation? Like, you know, like you just see mountains. I mean, I'm sure if it's flat, it's harder, but you're kind of like, are guys applying some of those land nav skills still even in the
100%.
air? You know, it'd be like, okay, cool. We knew the target had this ridge line over here or something, you know, and like make sure we hit that. If you're not completely relying on it, but it's something that's in the back of your head, like, hey, this might be it.
And that's the way we used to do it always back in the day. So nowadays, guys they're stupid if they're not doing that. But we would look at like a map and we would do a map study. Like, for example, like, hey, we're going to cross over here. We're going to cross over this road. We're going to fly over this mountain range. We're going to cross this river. There's a big lake off to the left and a big quarry out to the right. You know what I mean? There's huge things that you can look on a map and recognize those even 15, 20, 25,000 feet up in the sky under canopy. Because a lot of times you got to realize we're dumping this canopy. Like we're going off the ramp and pitching a parachute. So we're under canopy at 24,500 feet. That's why we have oxygen on.
Yeah.
So, and it's freezing cold up there. It's like negative 70, negative 50 to negative 70 at that altitude, regardless of the time of year.
And so you guys are doing like, you got computers, like is that a significant thing? Or it's like you said, the ATAC is the kind of the main navigation opposed
It's just
to
a little nav board that's on your chest. It flips down and you can see it right there. But your head's up, you're flying your canopy, you're looking at your buddies talking on the radio and occasionally checking that thing. Some dudes on the team may not even have to look at it that much. But the low guy, which is the guy who's leading the team, which is one of the more experienced guys, and then the high guy, which is the team leader, those dudes are definitely tracking that thing all the time. And they're calling out corrections. And that's the thing, like when you do the free fall in the course like that, we can take a brand new operator, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, or RSU, whatever, and do that 75 jumps. And he's capable of now and confident to land anywhere on a drop zone. But he's not going to ever do that by himself. Now we're taking that guy and putting him with a team of dudes who have done it a ton. And so now that dude's the new guy, and he's just, everybody's telling him what to do. And he just gets more and more and more experience.
Yeah. Has there been any, either in your experience or guys that like any crazy stories from jumps that are like stick out to you, or, you know, that happened to you, or you think it's like, oh my God, that was wild, you know?
Yeah. One of probably the craziest ones I'm trying to think of, a couple. When I was teaching the MARSOC course after I retired, we did this one jump. I think it was only 18,000 feet. at nighttime. One of the first nighttime high altitude, high openings we did with these guys. And we'll start bumping it up higher and higher. Because like you said, the higher up you go, if you're wrong, you can be miles and miles off the thing. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm talking with my hands a lot.
No, you're good.
Miles and miles off. So we just slowly bump it up as we go. And on this one, we go out, we jump, team opens up their parachutes, and I'm the instructor, so I'm counting them. They're supposed to count themselves, but I'm also counting them. And I'm like, we're missing a dude. And I'm like looking down, and I see a canopy below me, way down there. So somebody tumbled and got unstable. And what you're supposed to do is try to get yourself back to your belly and then deploy your parachute, which is what he did. But it took him several thousand feet to do it, and he was way lower than everybody else. So now the team can't see him because they're way off over here. I'm above him, so I'm talking them on. I'm like, hey, you got a low guy. Somebody tumbled, and he's not on the radio. Now he's not talking on the radio either. So we can't talk to the guy. He's down low, but I can talk to these guys. So I'm talking them on to him because we got to land where he lands. He's part of our team, and that's one of the contingencies we plan for. Comms go out, nav goes out, everything. We're paying attention. We know where everybody is, and we land with the low guy. Because he's going to land before everybody else, so we need to land wherever he is, even if we have to burn off altitude and not land where we want to. So now the low guy is the mission, but I'm trying to talk these guys on, and they never can see him because they're just overwhelmed. It's a lot for them. They're scared. This is their first night, hey-ho, or maybe the first one in this course, and they're scared, and they're trying to learn, and I'm critiquing them. So I try to talk them onto this guy, and I'm watching this dude, and he's in a spot that's not a good spot to land. And all of a sudden I see the canopy fall over. And I'm like, oh, he's on the ground. I'm like, hey guys, old boy's on the ground. We need to land with him. They still haven't seen him yet. I didn't have a laser to mark him with, which is a learning thing that we were like, hey, you guys need to give us lasers from now on. Because I could have roped this guy, but I didn't have the tools provided to do it. So anyway, they ended up landing way over here, and it drops on him. And then I get deep into my brakes and just sink it down on this dude because he's all by himself now. I know the team's good over there. I told them, I said, hey, I'm landing with a low guy to make sure he's okay because you guys didn't. And as I'm coming down, there's power lines, dude. There's trees. He missed all this stuff and landed in a bad spot. And so I'm sinking it deep in my brakes right over top of some power lines so that I can drop right in next to him. And good thing I did because he had snapped his leg. He snapped his leg on the landing, and he was on the verge of going into shock. So it was freezing cold, man. It was still nighttime, you know what I mean? Out in the desert at night. So it's probably in the 40s, upper 30s, low 40s. Old boy's freezing. He's like shivering over there and not very, he's responsive, but not that great. So I elevate his feet, check his leg out. I'm like, dude, your leg's broken clearly. I'm like, the medics are on the way. And then I had to go get everybody and round him up and talk everybody into this spot. And the spot that we landed at is a spot where it's really hard to get to, like by roads. So it took like an hour and a half for anybody to get there. So if I hadn't landed next to that dude, who knows? He could have gone into shock.
Yeah, yeah. And we were talking about this last night a little bit. For in combat, and again, how much you can talk about, but like, what do you do with your parachutes after you guys are, like again, as much as you can talk about it, whatever. Because that's always every time people watch movies or whatever, it's just like, cool, man. They jumped into some foreign country they're not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
What do you do with this 70-pound parachute that clearly you're not taking with you on the hit or doing whatever, on the recon?
Yeah. So the plan is to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So we hide them or we destroy them.
Okay.
So like, it just depends. Like there's guys that have jumped in before, and then, it depends. Like they may cache them somewhere, and then after the dudes move off, they'll drop bombs on them and blow them all up.
Just be like,
incinerate them. Or like, for example, SEAL Team 6 jumped into the ocean for the Captain Phillips raid, and they just sank them to the bottom of the ocean. I mean, it was a fake jump anyway, broad daylight. It was just it wasn't even a real jump, but they sank them to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Wasted probably several $1 million worth of parachutes for just a fake jump.
Yeah. What was I've heard about this, and this is just from my buddy in SF. He was talking about it, but I don't know if you guys ran into it, but back in the day, to some guys that didn't get their like you got your jump wings, in the invasion of Iraq. Did you guys run into anybody that was like that did jumps in Afghanistan just to get their jump wings?
Yeah, dude. So that happened with SEAL Team 6, dude. We were over there, and I remember this was when I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion. Remember I told you we didn't like Blue Squadron?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was Blue Squadron. So they had my company or platoon, I can't remember if it was a platoon or a company, we had to go out in the middle of the desert outside of Bagram in a secure area. They flew us in with helicopters, with CH-47s. They flew us in. We got out broad daylight. They made us push all the way out, like to build like a perimeter of a drop zone and secure. There was nobody there. There was no threat. You could have jumped in, nothing. But we had to go out and push out and secure it. And then the helicopter takes off, picks up SEAL Team 6 dudes. They fly over and jump in to get a combat jump. Yeah, jeez, that happened for real. Because everybody else had combat jumps. Delta Force had them. RRC had legit combat jumps.
Yeah, legit ones. Like, because they still legitly did that. Like, I'd heard some stories of guys like, yeah, we jumped in Afghanistan, did a hit, did all that, like, legit combat drops.
Yeah, the RRC guys jump. I think there's like 4 or 5 combat jumps that RRC guys did into combat in Afghanistan. They're not that often used, and Delta Force guys did a good many. But I think at that time, SEAL Team 6 had not done a jump. So they literally just made one up.
I heard a story that was like years ago, and wonder if that might have been the same people. I can't remember who I heard it from, but it's that exact story. Like whoever I was talking to was like, these motherfuckers, we just like put up a perimeter and they just flew in and they just dropped in. And
I wonder if that was Jack. Because it would probably have been somebody in my platoon, or it may have happened more than once. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I knew some Ranger guys like contracting, and I don't know who I heard from, but I remember hearing this story, and I was like, I got to check with you, see, being a Jumpmaster.
Totally true.
Yeah. That's cool. It's wild. So you did that. I mean, was that a pretty, like I said, a really good way to end your career on? Like, how was that? And then your transition out, like, what was, what's that kind of like?
It was, man. And I stopped jumping. Probably about 4 years ago, coming up on 4 years ago now. It seems like just the other day, but COVID happened. And when COVID happened, they shut down all the free fall contract stuff for a while. And so I was kind of happy for it because I was working so much. I was making ridiculous money doing all the contract stuff, but I was kind of ready for a break. And I transitioned out to do some government contract stuff for a bit and then did several other things. And then, to be honest with you, the slowdown gave me the opportunity to study the Bible. Like, I was having some rough times, man. Like, I got out, I was mad at the world, I was pissed off at everything. And then my wife was like, she was, always going to church and stuff. And I grew up going to church or whatever. But then she's like, you need to read your Bible. You need to read your Bible. I'm like, whatever, the Bible's trash. You know what I mean? Men wrote that thing. It's not God. God doesn't talk to us, you know what I mean? But I started studying it, man. And I put a lot of time in it. And I tried to prove that the Bible was trash. My wife was like, you need to read your Bible. I want a godly man. And I'm like, okay, I'll read this thing and prove to you it's trash. And so I took the diligence of an elite special operator to study the Bible. And the biggest thing that I learned is that it's legit as it can possibly be. It's the most amazing book I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'll tell you that you won't go to church and find out anything that's in there. I'm just telling you, because church is the biggest deception that there is. Like, I don't go to church, but I do believe everything in the Bible is true. And that's where I'm at now, man. That's what I do. Like, I consult with a couple companies. There's a company called Titan Performance. The owner of the company has supplements and stuff like that. The owner is just an amazing dude. He's become like a good friend, and I love that guy. He's had some issues recently with the FDA because since Trump has gotten in, they've been hardcore on crushing a lot of natural supplements that are very healthy, like peptides.
The peptide stuff you're talking about,
yeah. I've used peptides to heal my shoulder, heal my back, and issues like that completely. And I've been able to rehabilitate my body. I'm actually healthier probably now than I was even 5 years ago. Because of some of this stuff, and the FDA is shutting it all down. So anyway, he's lost a lot of business because of that. But I consult for that guy and help him with like some tactical. He likes to do a lot of tactical content, so I help kind of advise on that. I brought in a Delta Force buddy of mine as well who helps out with it, and we both kind of advise that guy. And I do some consulting for some other companies as well, or people have me on their website as a consultant. So I do that, and I get to be home and spend time with my family and the girls, and I live in a house with 5 girls.
Jeez, 5.
Yeah. Well, it's my wife and my daughter, and then my sister-in-law moved in with us last summer, and her 2 girls. Okay. And so our family expanded. You know what I mean? And I love having them there. It's awesome. But I just try to teach those girls to be good girls. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, and we'll get more into that too. I did want to back up just a little bit. We talked about this last night, but the Afghan evac in the situation, like I heard you talking about it on the team house, and it's always I think for a lot of us in that era, that was not just special operations. Everyone's guys that served in Afghanistan, like such a huge hit for us. The stuff that you were it was really cool hearing you and Jack, your guys' story on trying to evacuate your guys, because you had you talked about on that episode about training the the Afghan guys, and then trying to get them out.
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit last night too, is like you tried getting them out, you got other families out, but you couldn't get your guys out.
Yeah, dude.
And what was your, I have my own experience of that, and you have yours. What was, what was your fight for those, 2 months or so, or even those weeks in trying to get them out,
I was dealing with that for years, bro.
Yeah.
I still deal with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys were working on the food stuff. Again, the episode is 2 years old that I listened to, so we're 4 years on, or 5 years on now. Yeah. So
I'm still dealing with it a little bit, not much, but so I wasn't even really paying attention to anything going on with the Afghan withdrawal. Like, I don't watch TV. You know what I mean? I know it's weird, but I don't watch TV really. But I started. A guy reached out to me because he had seen me on the first Team House podcast that I did. And he was like, hey, man, I'm working with some of your Afghans over here. I was working with them as a contractor, and now I'm out of the country, and I want to help them out. How do we help them? And so he reached out to me, and then I got involved. And then next thing you know, we were trying to do everything we could do. We had all the assets. I could get Antonov 12s in there to bring in to land on desert landing strips and pick people up. I could bring in Mi-17s. I had all these different assets and all the intel networks that I had, been involved in while I was over there. I was talking to all my guys. My guys could survey drop zones or survey landing zones for us. And
because you had some advanced Afghans. Very advanced, very highly trained.
Our Afghans were trained like we were.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
Not near to where we were, but they were the most trained Afghans in the country, and the most capable and the most loyal Afghans in the country. And so I had these dudes that could survey landing zones for me and stuff like that to bring in planes. I just didn't have the money to get the planes and move people. So what I did was I leveraged my assets to help other people get their people out, and then in hopes that they would donate money to us that we could use to get our people out. It just never worked that way. Nobody would ever do it. Like, we would help them and they would never help us. We would help, and we'd just be like, all right, we're not going to work with them anymore. We'd try to help another group. We'd help them get their people out, and they would never help us. And all these, and it really changed my perspective on the world, man. I watched our government purposefully bringing Taliban to the United States. They probably still are. I found out that the United States was dumping $45 to $80 million a week into the Taliban, while we're trying to get these people out.
Yeah, we were finding that stuff out too. It was like, what? But I was working with Task Force Argo.
Yeah, I worked with them a good bit too.
Good dudes. Are as much as we could. I was on Signal, and I'm sure you were running into that. Like, we were at one point, me and my buddy called me up because we had our interpreters, and again, we had our interpreters were interpreters, and it had been like years since they'd done it.
Yeah.
So not as advanced as your Afghans, but it was we were just like, what do we do? Can we at one point he called me, he's like, are we flying into Tajikistan? Are we going, what are we doing? And I was like, I don't know. I'm trying to work it out. We're trying to figure stuff out, and I think that was such a, you felt like your hands are tied every corner. Everyone's up at different hours. Like you said, you sleep. Same with me. It was just like, we're up at night because of the time zone.
Yeah,
change.
you're working at night.
Yeah, you're just like, go to this gate, go to this guy. This guy can help you through, because we had contractors that had connections it was like, I can't remember who was running the contract at the gates. It was like the last bit of contractors, that were doing static security, the Americans, so I was curious, like I said, what was your experience? Like you said, you're getting your guys close to getting out, but they couldn't get out. Like, how, what was that? Like, again, what was the things you were working through?
It was just, for one, was getting them passports, because they shut down the government. So the guys that didn't have passports, they wouldn't let them fly without passports. Yet our government would let Taliban fly to the United States without passports. But my ARU dudes, who helped us rescue all the American citizens that were left, there was roughly 10,000 American citizens left there. We helped rescue a significant portion of those guys. These dudes were loyal to help us get all the interpreters out too. My guys were doing a lot of the movement, helping you guys with Argo too. We worked with Argo a good bit. But then our government just refused to let them out. Like we would get them a way to get out for the most part, and our government would just come up with a way to shut it down. Like, I was talking to politicians all over the place. Like, I got big into politics because of it. Like I told you, Fox News invited me to speak at the AEI World Forum, which is a massive, you guys have heard of the World Economic Forum, the big one. But this is a conservative version of that. And they invited me to speak. I was one of the guest speakers on one of the big stages in there with Mike Waltz, the Green Beret congressman from Florida, and other people. And we spoke about that, but like I talked to these politicians and they want to do all these things. They'll tell you anything, bro, when they're getting ready to be elected, but they will drag feet until they get elected and then they'll trash you and never talk to you again. That's the way they all are, man. Or they'll do something so superficial that looks like they did. Like they'll write a memo and submit it to somebody, then it's not going to go anywhere. So they just blow smoke up your butt the whole time. Meanwhile, our government was funding and facilitating Taliban to come here and blocking our guys, man. It's just nonstop issue after issue after issue after issue, man. So ultimately what we did, we raised some money the best that we could, and then we used that money to feed those guys and take care of them, provide homes for them and firewood and food as best we could. We basically fed about 2,000 families and housed 2,000 families for probably 3.5 to 4 years.
Still, that was in Afghanistan.
We couldn't get them out, so we were just like, well, we'll help you guys.
And who was it? We had connections with something like that too. I can't remember what it was called, but it was
Moral Compass Federation.
No, it wasn't them. It was another nonprofit they were sneaking food into Kabul. They had like a warehouse, and they were.
That was us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was probably one of our some of the people
be.
we were tied to.
Yeah, it wasn't World Kitchen. It was something else.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it was this female we were working with, and again, there's so many names, signal chats. It's like it's a blur now. But they were. It was like that was the last thing, and it was hard for me because it was. The one guy that was our interpreter, I just couldn't get him out. I got other families out, but it was like, and then it was like a year came, and I just finally I was like, dude, it's not happening. Like, it's and luckily there was the other family had gotten out. They were trying to get to the U.S. And then at one point we just told them because it'd been like a year and a half, and we're like, just take wherever you can get. And they ended up in Canada. It's like cool, like
better than Afghanistan.
Better than because they were staying in not Qatar. Was it UAE or something? They had that big, like basically refugee camp.
Yep.
And they were sending us photos and videos. Kids were having a good, what I mean? Good
Qatar, UAE. There's multiple of them.
Yeah. And so they were there for a long time. And then I was just like, if you can take Canada, like take it. Like you're not the U.S. And at that point, the frustration, I was like, they're not gonna. It's over, man. Like it's over.
Yeah.
And so they did. They managed to get there. But yeah, the one guys who initially contacted me was like, we just tried to get him out and. It's crazy. The one reason he couldn't get on a flight and the other ones did is because they were closer to Mazar Sharif. They were getting out of Mazar Sharif. They got those flights out of.
Yeah, I pushed a bunch of dudes up there.
Yep. And it was just so happened that someone gave me a hookup. They're like, if you got like one family, and it's like, and it was like one of those things where like last minute, and I was like, God, my guy's down in Kabul, the other guy's in Maz, and that's just fate plays its cards. It's like that was it. That was just because. Just happened to be in that area, and I was like, I can get them out, and we tried getting the other one out, but then all the flights cut off. But and I mean, have you in those years too? I think you might have talked about it. Was there any type of? I mean, maybe I just didn't see it, but was there any type of resistance that did kind of stand up at one point?
In Afghanistan,
because there's the Northern Alliance or the new formed Northern Alliance, but then they got beat back into the Panjshir, and it was just I even talked with Legend. He was like the
I've talked to him a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. I talked to him on the 9. I was going to try to get him on. I mean, that was like a year or two ago now. But he's talking with Masood's son.
I've talked to him too.
Okay.
I actually did some posts for him to support them.
Okay,
because those dudes were actually being successful and pushing them back. But then the U.S. with drones from Pakistan smoked them all.
Yeah, I heard Pakistan got it was the whole
thing.
They
went in there with drones and smoked them. The U.S. directed that too.
Yeah,
it's like, come on, bro. Seriously, you're literally taking out our dudes who are fighting the bad ones. They had them stopped for a second until Pakistan came in there and smoked them with drones.
Yeah, and so then what do you know? This I mean, I could say current status of that now because now it's out of people's minds a little.
I don't know. I haven't really stayed that up on it. Like there's dudes I still talk to every couple days on Signal from over there just to like, hey, how's it going, brother? And like they need everything. And I'm like, I can't give you anything. I don't have any money. I spent all my own money. I've spent probably 20 grand of my own money trying to help Afghans out over the years. And then all the donor money that we got, we spent every single penny of it on those guys. But I'm not sure what the status is now.
Yeah, it turned into a black hole for us. Like it was just like, there's nothing there.
It did for us too.
Yeah.
And another thing that I noticed that a lot of people may be surprised to hear is I found out a lot of these Christian, godly, supposedly organizations that were over there, what they were doing was trafficking children, drugs, and smuggling guns. I found that out because I got on some of these Christian groups And I was talking to them. I'm like, maybe they'll help my Afghans, because I had some Afghans who wanted to become Christians, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, these Afghans, they're giving up Islam, and they're willing to be Christians. Can we help them out? And these guys, and some of my guys ended up getting in the pipelines to be smuggled out. And these were their rat lines where they smuggle Bibles. And my dudes were like, dude, they're smuggling children, trafficked, like slave children, guns, and narcotics.
Just under the guise of this Christian, or like an organization or something. Yeah.
Yep.
God, yeah.
That's shitty. And they're all connected to the agency too.
Yeah. That sucks, man.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Changed my worldview on a lot of things, man.
Yeah. That was a tough one now. Anyways, so I did want to talk about that a little bit, because we were talking about that and I'd heard about that. And that's always a big piece of, kind of direction I headed into, which talking what's on the other side of, hey, helping with counter human trafficking or volunteering or whatnot. So, but yeah, so that all happened, and then you said you got into your, back in your family, and this is kind of an important thing. One, talk about your faith in God, but also like your family, like your, with your wife and everything. I mean, you were deploying a lot, and we don't typically get to talk about this a lot on the show. I try to, we try to talk about it, or we have other things to cover, but you did 20 years. What type of strain does that come on a relationship? Like my wife, I don't do a lot of some of the stuff I do or want to do because she didn't sign up for it, but I was, I knew how that life was. I had girlfriends. I was like, hey, you take it or leave it, type of deal. What's that like? Such a high op tempo, and then having kids. My brother's about to retire after 20 years, and they had a lot of stressors. So, what's that like for you to be going through all that type of stuff, and then, like, say, coming back and being like, hey, family, this is my priority now.
Yeah, it really should be all of our priorities. But yeah, it wasn't as bad for me because I didn't marry my wife until later in my life. So I was already in RRC when I met her. So like she only did 2 or 3 deployments with me. The last couple that I did in RRC, and then the one I did with the Mortar platoon, and then she was with me at the free fall school. So she got to experience a little bit of it, but not a ton. But it was the baggage that I had coming out of the military, and it's one of the things like when you have to become like an elite operator, you have to have a lot of drive and motivation, right? But you have to have something to focus that drive and motivation towards, which is killing the bad guys, right? But then after I wasn't doing that anymore, I had no reason for the drive or motivation, and honestly, I was mad. And that's, like people call it operator syndrome, PTSD, whatever. I don't have any regrets. I don't have nightmares. I don't think any of that stuff. But I was just angry. I was mad. And I think it was because I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a mission to focus on anymore. So I was drinking a lot just to kind of like quench the pain, you know what I mean? And marriage wasn't that good. Me and my wife were fighting like cats and dogs. And then I just made the commitment to, like I said, I started getting into the Bible, and that changed me. And now, man, my family's my focus, and we're good, man. Yeah. We still have our ups and downs, but dude, we're stronger than we've ever been.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's good to hear, because it's, I like what you said about that. You met your wife. It's almost kind of like at the tail end. It's like those guys, but when they started, they've been married, divorced 3-4 times.
Yeah.
I've been through that, and you see that, it's just like, oh man, I don't want to end up like that. But even when you still are halfway through that amount of stress, like how do you get through it? That those type of questions. And I think for guys out there that are looking into doing this, like kind of seeing that beforehand, not say avoid that type of situation, but to like know what you're getting into. Like that's tough. Like it's just tough on a family, to see your kids, or do you not see your kids? And, because I got friends there, it's like, I don't even know if my kids know me, It could be legends in your community, but, sometimes at the end of the day, you come home and it's like, yeah, it's rough. It's tough. Like it's, you did it again in your community, you're a legend, but when you come home, it's like, how many guys do we know? They're like that.
Yeah.
It's their personal life is a disaster. Amazing on the gun, amazing on deployment, disaster when you get home, and just kind of, so like I said, we don't really talk. It's actually kind of the first time I've been wanting to do this and talk about it. You were in that community, and we were both in multiple deployments, but we don't discuss that as much. Like, what's the importance of family, and taking care of your family, knowing when to kind of hang it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to do, because if you're in one of those elite units, it is a literal lifestyle. if you don't live and breathe it, you ain't going to make it. You're not going to survive. You're not going to continue to excel. You're not going to be one of the best guys there. So it's a lifestyle, and there's no family even involved in that. You know what I mean? They're there, but they can't do any of that stuff. You're constantly away from them, constantly gone. It is challenging, and it takes a special kind of woman to last through all that. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's tough, man. But I think focusing on them now, like you said, I could be this a legend in the unit, but then I realized now I'm spending time with my family, they have no clue whatever I've even done in the military, because they never cared about that stuff. It was just my job. So they have no clue who even I am, you know what I mean? Who I actually am. So now I'm trying to learn who my family is, and they're trying to learn who I am. And we finally have figured that out now, but it takes years, man. I mean, you don't learn your Ranger buddy overnight. It takes years. The more you're with him, the more you know him intimately. And it's the same. Like, I never really had the time with my family until after I retired. And even right after I retired, I was still busy because I was doing all the free fall contracts. I was out in Arizona and California jumping constantly. For 12 weeks at a time, doing course after course after course. Then I'd come home for 2 weeks, then gone again for a couple months. You know, so I just now am figuring out who my family is.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's guys should talk about it. That's just my opinion, because the way that I feel about that too, it's like now my family is my priority. So it's just like you know, yes, this sounds awesome. This opportunity sounds great, but I don't take it. You know, or you say you don't, you know, I've done too much, you know, or like I said, the free fall, you're kind of glad COVID happened a little bit, where you're like, you know what, time to slow down a little bit, you know, time to hang out a little bit more. And I think that's something too, I guess, like I said, for guys to hear a little bit. It's like, hey man, it's cool to take a break, you know, or just be like, now it's time, because at the end of the day, man, like, you know, those are that's
who's with you for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
The military doesn't care. Like, I could go back to the Ranger Regiment, and there's dudes I know there, and they're happy to see me, but after I walk away, they could care less that I ever was there, and they completely forget about you. It doesn't matter how good you were either. They're going to completely forget about you, but that family is going to be there with you for the rest of your life. So it behooves all of us to invest in them as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's why it's I like guys to talk about it a little more, because now that we're all older, it's like, hey man, like, listen to the old guys a little bit, you know, like either wait and have a family, or just know that, like, hey, at the end of the day, like, they're the ones that you gotta come, you know, you shouldn't say you gotta come, you want to come home to, you know. It's and that's important for me. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old now, so it's very like, oh my god, you know, I can't imagine doing this when I had them, you know. You know, 15 years ago, 18 years ago, it's a different. It's crazy. And I had guys that did do that, and they are divorced, or they don't see their kids as often. You know, it's like they had kids right at as soon as we joined the Marine Corps, they had like a kid, and you're like, holy shit, man,
their whole career, their kids were nowhere near them. Yeah, exactly, and how do these children grow up? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, you know, it's cool to hear, you know, like your perspective on it. You know, operating at such a high tempo, but it's also too just so that talking about it more, the guys realize, oh yeah, maybe, you know, do it at a certain time period in life, and just know, you know, call it when you need to call it, or call it when you should call it. Yeah. You know, that, you know, because that's tough too on guys. It's like, hey man, like, sometimes you just need to fucking call it. Like, what's the next mission do?
Yeah. If your if your home life sucks, everything else in your life is going to be tarnished by that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's very important that your home life be good. And that's where I'm focusing now. And it's just getting better and better and better. You know, because it is critical, man. Like I said, those guys, that's who's going to be with you the rest of your life.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you. All right, dude. This is exciting. What we're going to do is now, if you're cool with this, we're going to go into exclusive content. So if there's anything else you want to cover before we go into the paid?
Nah, man. I would like to talk about like the faith piece a little bit too.
Yeah, well, we can do that on the unpaid. So my if looking at our time here. So my goal for the exclusive cover, we talked about this before, and I was trying to think of a way. I work this into every episode. If you can, talk about how to train for like a tier 1.
Okay.
So we can do that in the exclusive. But yeah, we can talk about the faith stuff now, and we got some time, and then we'll shift over.
Can I hit the restroom real quick?
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go. You got time. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, even for the exclusive content part, we'll do like 20 minutes or something like that. Just cool. I think it'd be a cool one, just so that people are like, oh, one, I like to do it for my people that pay for the you know, memberships for the 9 of them that are out there, and then but that'd be a cool subject to talk about. How do you train for, say, RRC? You know, it's kind of like a little catch there. But yeah, before we get into that, yeah, probably about 10 minutes or so, we talk about, faith, something that's big, my wife and I, and you're studying the Bible and getting into that. Yeah. What's that like? Or, how has that helped you? You're running Bible studies on Saturdays, correct?
Yeah.
So you can get into that a little bit.
Yeah, man. I think it's important, man, because the interesting thing is veterans get the Bible if they just study it, right? Because the Bible says God is a man of war. It's essentially an instruction manual for war that's going to take place in the future, and it just clicks a lot of times. There's so many veterans coming to it, and it's the only thing that I've seen that gets rid of PTSD, all these different things. It will literally get rid of those things if you completely submit to it and obey what it says, right? And I'll tell for the people out there that may be surprised by this, like you won't find this taught in churches. Like the doctrine, the God that's in the Bible is never spoken of in churches. I'm sorry to say that, but it's not the case. The God in the Bible is so different. Like for example, the God that's taught in church is what they call the Antichrist. That's what the Bible calls it. It's literally a false Christ. And that's why people go to church and their pastors are cheating on their wives and like messing with other, people's wives and molesting little children. It's because it's not godly. They're not godly people. They're not doing what the Bible says. But if you look at what the Bible says and you obey those commandments, the commandments that God gave us, it cleans your life up and it actually heals you, like physically heals you, mentally heals you. And that's one of the things, the biggest thing changed for me. You can ask my wife. I was a raging butthole, man. Like I was just out of control, man, drinking, doing all this kind of stuff, being mean, like angry and grumpy all the time. And now I'm not. And it's because that stuff has cleaned me up. And it's very important to tell that to other people. And like, for example, you brought up the Saturday. I do church on Saturday. Why? Because that's what the Bible says, bro. It's nowhere in the Bible does it say to go to church on Sunday. That's a man-made tradition, and a lot of people don't realize they want to follow Jesus. Jesus says to follow him. Bro, he didn't do any of these things. He didn't do Christmas. He didn't do Easter. He would actually be angry and be flipping tables if people were doing Christmas and Easter. Those are pagan practices. They're not in no way biblical. Actually, God calls them an abomination. So, and that's how big of a difference is. And if you got any questions, I'll pause there. But yeah, I study it relentlessly, man, and I teach it to people, and I've seen it change. And like the way everything that we live in the world is against the Bible. For example, feminism, right? My wife's favorite phrase used to be happy wife, happy life. And that's completely against the Bible. It should be happy husband, happy life. You know what I mean? The wife was created for the man to help him as his number one helper. And our houses are all out of whack. And that's why we fight. That's why we have strife. That's why we have anger in our homes. It's because we're not living like God intended us to live. I mean, in our work, I do the consulting for Titan Performance. Like if you want to perform at the optimum level, you have to live your life the way the Creator designed you to live. If not, you're not going to perform properly. You're not going to be blessed. You're not going to be successful. You can make your own success. We can all, as men, tough it out and make ourselves successful, but we can be much more successful if we just walk in accordance with the way God wants us to live.
And this is something too. I mean, yeah. How long? Like I said, you're angry and all this other stuff within. How long did you study it or read it? And you say you read it over and over, and it was frustrating. Is there something that to you after because reading it, like say it's a trend, but I feel like people find a lot of solace in or comfort in the Bible, in faith and religion, or or however you want to say it. Is that something like I said you're obviously into it? We're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Like I don't say giving you the compass or the mental spirituality to move forward. Like, is that like, how did you find that? Because you were angry at it, and how did you find that? And how did that kind of click for you?
Well,
to go from like, I hate this to,
yeah.
Hey, this is, I'm living in this way now. That's a big, and I'd say big leap, but you know what I mean? That's a big journey.
It is. Well, it's because I studied the Bible and I studied it and I studied it and I started seeing that everything in the world is exactly as that book predicted it. I mean, so like it predicted it thousands of years ago that the things that we see in the world right now are exactly the way that the Bible predicted. For example, look at what's going on right now in Israel, right? The Bible talks about this, and it says, and even Jesus himself in the book of Revelation says in verse 2:9 and 3:9, it says that there are these people at the end time that call themselves Jews, but the Bible says they're not. They do lie, but they're the synagogue of Satan. That's who controls the whole world. Think about it. That's why all of our politicians, Republican, Democrat, Russian politicians, Canadians, German, you name it, any country, where do they go when they get elected? They go to Israel and they bow down to that Wailing Wall and tuck notes into the wall and put on this little yarmulke. Nowhere is that in the Bible. That's actually forbidden in the Bible. But they call those are the people of God, right? And that's who we support. But when you study the Bible, you realize that that's who runs the whole world in the end times, and that's Antichrist. It's Satan's people, and that's one of the things. And I've seen all these different things and how these wars are planning out and lining up. It's all exactly as the Bible predicted it. So that's one way I know it's divine. And then as I've started incorporating those things in my life, man, it's changed. We've been blessed so much that we can help others. We can, give to others and help other people and take care of my sister-in-law and put them up in our house, for however long is needed. But that's the way God wants us to live. For example, and this is, everybody says God is love. Jesus taught love. He did. But when we keep his commandments, it's loving our neighbors as ourselves. For example, my sister-in-law, she's a grown woman married to another guy who was a Ranger, who's a Special Forces guy, right? He's just retired from Special Forces. The world would tell me that she should be able to take care of herself. She should go out and get a job and go work and provide for herself. But God says I should take her in and allow her to raise her children properly and provide for her until a godly man comes along. That's love, you know what I mean? And but a lot of people miss that. And when we apply those things to our lives, it makes all our relationships better.
Yeah. And finally, like I said, following the commandments, I grew up, doing. And then I know, because I know people, just to even, in my own life, we're Midwest or the Lutherans, and but there definitely is, I know, living by those or just living morally and then, to your best with those commandments. I know a lot of people are like, man, it just you do feel better, or you feel like a little bit of I don't say cleanse, but you do have a guide to be like, hey, this is a way of a better life. It's harder.
It is harder.
You're not living, and having fun, I'd say having fun, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not indulging, but it's everything else. It's fun to eat cake, but you should probably go out for a 5-mile run, you know what I mean? Like, and so it is like, it's, in that aspect, I know that a lot of people have, come back to religion or come back to faith, come back to the Bible, because there's a structure there that inherently I think people gravitate to.
We like rules.
Yeah, we like rules, guidelines, and it's just the spirituality of it, and and having faith, and in that aspect, I know that does help a lot. So hearing your perspective on it, and it's something like I said, you've gone through that whole journey. So do you? How many people do you meet up with, or is it just like is it a men's group? Is it what do you do on your Saturdays, or what's your how deep do you guys go, or what's your structure on that?
Our church is totally different than most people's church. It's in the entire day. So we devote the entire day to God. Think about it. Like, people go to church on Sunday. They call that the Sabbath day, even though that's nowhere to be found in the Bible. They call that the Sabbath day, but let's read the commandment. It says not to condone others to work on that day, nor do any other work. We're not supposed to work on that day, nor do anything common or unclean. We're supposed to devote that whole day to God, to the Most High God, right? And so for us on Friday evening at sunset, because God's days are different than man's days, they're evening to evening. That's the way the Bible says it. So from Friday evening to Saturday evening, that's what we keep as the Sabbath day. And we don't do anything common or unclean. Like my phone won't even be on for that 24-hour period, typically. And if it is, I'm only going to check it for emergency text, but I will never use anything other than checking for emergency text. But yeah, we devote the entire day, and then Saturday morning we wake up, we sleep in, because it's a day of rest too. We're supposed to rest. And so we sleep in, and then we get up, take our time drinking our coffee. Everybody rolls up to the house about 11. We have a woman that shows up early, and she teaches all the kids, which are all girls right now. But we've got we've had up to like 7 or 8 girls at a time, like little girls that learn. And so they'll do that for about an hour, and then I live on a 250-acre farm. So then we cut my daughter loose as the senior girl in charge of all the girls, and they go play on the trampoline, volleyball, ride the side-by-side, go on the trails, hang out in the hayfield, jump on hay bales, whatever. They do that while we do our church. And then we'll do music just like any other church. We'll put some songs on. We'll sing those songs. And then after that, we'll do like prayers for people that we need. And we probably have, on average, anywhere from 15 to 25 or 30 people. It just depends. It depends on if we have guests or people from out of town. We have people that drive as much as 2.5 hours away just to join us for church. That's how important it is to them when you see the truth that actually God prescribes. And then after we do the prayer stuff, then I'll do a sermon that I prepare each day, and it goes about an hour. And my sermons aren't like what you hear in the church. It's not me speaking, it's God's word. I literally use scripture to teach. And I'll go through from the front of the Bible to the back of the Bible, and I'll show you what God says on a certain topic and context. And then I'll put my own little blurbs. As you can see clearly, this says this and this is that. And that's it. And that's about an hour. And then after that, we break and we go eat. So everybody brings food. Everybody brings some food and we all eat. And then we hang out. And then we go to prescribed readings because it's actually a commandment of God that we read parts of the Old Testament every Sabbath day. And so we read parts of that. And sometimes that goes so deep that it'll go till 9 o'clock at night. No, like nobody wants to leave. Like everybody just hangs out and then we'll go outside and watch the stars together. You know what I mean? So we do it all. I mean, it's enjoyable. And the people that are there are so dedicated to it that they crave it, you know? And then I have about 8,000 people on YouTube that are subscribers. Not all of them watch all the time, but anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people. It just depends. I'll watch on a week. Sometimes a couple hundred to 1,000. It just depends. I have people from South Africa, New Zealand, Canada. Trying to think. Somebody hit me up from Lima, Peru the other day that watched that. And then on top of that, I do a Thursday Bible study for veterans, right? I got a bunch of dudes that have reached out to me that I mentor to join the military. Dudes that want to be SEALs, Special Forces guys, Rangers. And I do a weekly Bible study with those guys. And we do about an hour of that. And then I have probably several hundred to 1,000 dudes that just randomly text me, men from all over the world, a lot of veterans that hit me up about questions on the Bible. Because guys are seeing, they're like, man, I'm not getting anything out of church. And I'm like, yeah, it's not good stuff. I mean, to be honest. So anyway, I'll pause there. I know we got
yeah, I was just, sorry, I was checking my watch. No, that was great. I'm glad you talked about it. And then, we'll move on to the exclusive content here, but just because we're starting to run out of time. But where can people find you? Where can they find your YouTube channel? Like, just at the very end here before we move into the exclusive content stuff.
Well, people know me from RRC. So that's my Instagram, RRC Mike Edwards. I didn't even have any social media until a couple years ago. And then YouTube, I have that name the same. So people go to look for me, they'll find that, and maybe they'll find God.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Go check out everything we just said. Like and subscribe. Hit the notification button. And thanks for tuning in for everybody. Mike, thanks for coming on. And we will switch over here to the exclusive content. Go subscribe if you want to listen to it at Spotify exclusive, YouTube membership, Vet TV will be full episode will be on there, and Apple. Well, actually, it won't be on Apple House. Those 3 platforms. So thank you so much for listening. And Mike, thanks for coming on. And we're switching over.